phones are on silent, please. That's very important. Very, very warm welcome to those of you who are joining us online as well. Thank you very much for being here again, and I hope you had a good experience yesterday, even though you weren't in the room with us. Okay, you've now got lots of people in the way of me. There's a little convention going on in the middle of the aisle. Voila. All right. Who is feeling fresh and ready to go today? Are we good? We've still got a good number of people in the room. Thank you very, very much. I did catch some speakers walking to the Grand Place yesterday. Where are you? Did you make it? Somebody was en route to the Grand Place, no? They're still wandering around. They got sucked into the waffle restaurant. Okay, so dear audience, dear speakers, show me your hands if you're a speaker today, so I can just eyeball you. Yes, I know, Louis, hello, hello, hello. Great, please come in, there are plenty of seats. A very warm welcome to this second day, this half day of the EMODnet Open Conference. We have again some super smart, super enthusiastic, very diverse speakers to stimulate your grey matter today. And we're going to explore in the two panels respectively, EMODnet for research, innovation, and the blue economy. So we haven't really covered off that topic. So that first session is dedicated to that. And EMODnet service evolution for the European Ocean Pact. Where is all of this going? What do we want? How do we shape it? Who needs to help shape it? And how? That's super important. We will use Slido. We will do some word clouds. We will do some apps. Again, I will ask if you have questions from the floor. So not from the audience, but from the floor, certainly. So could we just jump on Slido very, very rapidly and see for today what we may or may not be excited about. So if you can just jump on Slido, there we go. I'm excited to learn more about what today. Of that, what most piques your interest today? Is it the vision? And as I said, there's documents everywhere, so I hope you've got your hands on those. You can also, of course, get hold of the summary online. Is it this conversation around the blue economy and how this network delivers for that? Is it because you're still looking to partner up with somebody, and so you're still floating around with intent, offering free cake to a willing person to come and talk to you? Is it EMODnet's complementarity with other EU data services and partnerships? So what is it? Well, it's the one I hadn't read out. We heard about the European Ocean Pact yesterday, why it's such a big deal, why it will help to bring everything together, all of these different policies and initiatives, how it will help to provide a really kind of robust umbrella for all of that. Voila. Okay. Thank you so very much. A quick reminder while you are still very, very fresh, please don't forget, visit the exhibition, because not all of the exhibition stays for the rest of the week for the digital Twin of the Ocean event. So you do need to go and visit it, please. All right, so our first session, we can put up the title for that, Marine Knowledge for a More Competitive and Restorative Blue Economy. That's actually our first speaker, forgive me, who's going to headline this. She's a policy officer at the European Commission's Joint Research Centre. Her name is Vilma-Inkeri Kuuliala. And I hope, but you can come up now. In fact, come up now, and then I can check whether what I have that you are sharing with these good people is indeed what you still have, because you're stepping in for a colleague. So a warm welcome. Can I ask you just to take off your lanyard? I'm so picky about this. I'm such a pain for the photos. From data to decision making. Is that still the title of your session? Okay, so you're not talking about something particularly different. So Vilma is going to give a view from the JRC on the critical role of marine and maritime knowledge in shaping a competitive blue economy. So we're going to get that kind of headlining view before the speakers will amplify it on the panel. Over to you. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Am I standing in the right place? You can hear me? I think so, yes. So very much a pleasure to be here. So diving straight into it, let me see if I am doing this the right way. Sorry, always gotta check the slides. So to start with where I'm talking from, the JRC hosts the European Union Blue Economy Observatory and produces the European Union's annual Blue Economy report. This is something that we do together with DG Mare to help make the best out of the ocean opportunities in a sustainable way, both to enhance competitiveness of the European Union and also for greater strategic autonomy. And to do this, of course, we are heavily dependent on high-quality, up-to-date data and information from marine and maritime sectors. So this session will tackle something that is very important to us, our analysis, and also that of our partners, our stakeholders. So I hope I will be able to stimulate the discussion by providing a brief view on some particular priorities and challenges that we think that we should focus on together. And just to very quickly first introduce the European Commission's Joint Research Centre where I come from. So we are a Commission Directorate General, and we are sometimes called the scientific arm of the Commission. So our task is to support the EU policies with independent scientific evidence across the different policy areas and throughout the whole policy cycle. And when it comes to specifically to marine policies, we pursue our research and provide our advice now under the remit of the Water Resilience Strategy and the Ocean Pact, from source to sea, which is a notion that we take very seriously, as I will show you. And we also put our socio-economic analysis of marine and maritime sectors and activities in the context of the triple planetary crisis, so climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. And we contribute to the development of the datasets and information that can be integrated across freshwater, coastal areas, and marine, and the different areas and sectors thereof. So getting into concrete examples, here you see an example of our support to create validated high-quality data that is fit for purpose. So these pictures depict ocean observation activities under the remit of the Copernicus program. Now, satellite data is very important to validate and ground truth through in situ sampling and analysis. And at the JRC, together with international extra EU institutions, including but not limited to NASA, we assess ocean optical characteristics to make sure that satellite images, satellite space data is properly validated, properly fit for purpose. And in recent times, as you can see in the pictures, we also increasingly tap into opportunities that come from the new high-performing drones. Here you have an air drone, but also underwater drones, which we can then modify to our purposes, and they help us to gain a more direct view of the ocean. And the data and information that we acquire, process, analyze under the Copernicus remit, it helps us to understand the ocean dynamics and to project future impact on ocean ecosystems in the context of different policy scenarios. At the same time, we rely heavily on high-quality data sets that allow us to estimate and assess the size, the trends, the potential of the European blue economy. And this we share with policymakers, with the industry, general public, in the online European Union Blue Economy Observatory, which I mentioned at the beginning. There we have interactive dynamic dashboards which the different stakeholders, different end users can tailor the display of the information according to their own specific needs. And a specific, yet of course exciting challenge is to link the social and economic data to the environmental observation and projections that we produce. And with the next slide, I will provide a few very brief examples of that. So here we have three very recent examples of integrating economic information with environmental marine modeling to predict scenarios that can advise policymaking or can be used for marine spatial planning, which is something we think is becoming increasingly important. So in the top picture, you can see results from a recent Nature publication where we show that under plausible future climate change scenarios, reduced freshwater influx from Mediterranean rivers into the sea leads to a considerable reduction in ecosystem productivity. And this, in turn, will cause great economic damage to the fisheries in the affected regions. And the lower left picture shows a recent analysis, which we actually currently also continue. And this is looking at European sea basins and the potential for seaweed cultivation, also again under different climate change scenarios. And this is something quite important for marine spatial planning. And on bottom right, we also look at opportunities and challenges related to the development of desalination plants in different regions of the European Union. Now, none of this work that I have mentioned would, of course, have been possible without having access to relevant data which we can trust in and which is then made fit for purpose for our own in-house. We have integrated freshwater marine modeling framework, which is called Blue2, if you come across the name. So, obviously, informed decision-making for any purpose depends on the availability of marine and maritime data of adequate quality. And ideally, this is a need that should already be stipulated in legislation or policy frameworks aiming at marine and maritime governance. And an excellent, if not necessarily that well-known example of this is the Common Fisheries Policy, which we have here. So the basic CFP regulation insists on the provision of best available scientific advice and the collection of scientific data. And then the accompanying data collection framework regulation obliges member states to collect and make the scientific data available. And at the JRC, we compile this data, we use it to respond to CFP scientific advice needs, together with the Scientific, Technical and Economic Committee for Fisheries. And while it might not be perfect, there is some criticism also towards the CFP. We think that this approach as such should be seen as a best practice. So all of this to say that we sincerely believe that EMODnet should be the European gateway to marine data. This is what we need. It should be a fully accessible, comprehensive data service where end users can take advantage of data that is reliably validated, harmonized, and quality checked. And we know that since the beginning of EMODnet, great steps have been taken into this direction. However, for an all-encompassing database for a sustainable European blue economy, we would need to incorporate data sets from even greater variety of stakeholders, including, of course, the industry. And at the JRC, we do strive to support this. For example, through our scientific support to the Marine Strategy Framework Directive, we managed to encourage the member states to feed their marine litter data to EMODnet, which they happily agreed to do. And our work on this data with the Marine Strategy Framework Technical Working Group on marine litter then enabled to do these robust trend assessments, which actually showed that there has been a reduction in EU coastline litter by 29% between 2015 and 2021. And there is recent data still in elaboration, which, once it's published, will show even further reduction. So this is one very good practical example of how scientists, member states, and EMODnet can work together to significantly create tangible difference in our understanding of what is going on in the marine and coastal environment. So coming to the end now, I hope that these examples can stimulate a constructive, interesting panel discussion that can help us make the best use of the marine knowledge and data for a European blue economy that is both more competitive but also restorative. And with the last slide, I say thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. I stand here just, I love the way you were very kind because your colleague's name was still there, even though you had amply presented. Just a question for you, if I may. Yesterday we heard from the Commissioner in his video right at the start the importance of getting all of this right and the value of the Ocean Pact at a time where there is immense geopolitical instability. So, it's not like the stakes weren't high enough as it was in terms of protecting the oceans and managing how they are used and mined. But now the stakes are even higher. So I think what could just add something for us is the role or the added value that you see in particular for EMODnet in this geopolitical environment. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, at the JRC, we have a long history of working with partners across the Atlantic, and we see the impacts already. We see our colleagues essentially disappearing, some of them, and there is the sort of looming fear that we will lose access to very important data, especially important timescale data. At the same time, there is quite an encouraging global scale move towards better, more improved ocean observation and the will to fill this gap. So yes, there is definitely a role for EMODnet to step in as this sort of global both storage and access point for data.
Yeah.
And indeed, we are glad to see that this is something that is in the works under the leadership of DG Mare. And at the JRC, we are also doing different things. We are doing the global litter monitoring. We are working under the BBNJ.
Yeah.
So yes, it is a significant challenge. We can see the gap appearing. At the same time, there is the will, there is the drive globally to, nobody wants to give in. And of course, then there will be questions, I know, related to resources, feasibility of filling this gap, and there are probably people here who are better to address that aspect of what EMODnet will be able to do in the long term. But yes, the potential is absolutely there, the role, the added value is there, and I think the will is there. So I'd like to be optimistic in this sense, especially if will then leads to improved collaboration, both within the EU and with our global partners. So I think that will, I personally hope that that will help us get at least quite a long way there to fill this gap.
I think you touch upon yesterday when we were running some of the word clouds, there was certainly this response that political will, and fabulous to hear that certainly there has been an increase. We heard that the importance of making progress in this area of the governance, certainly it's higher on the political agenda, but the importance is that it stays there. It's there, and this I think ties into what we will hear later, which is, how is it evolving and what do we need? If it is to be, what did you write there? You talked about this this gateway. That was, what did you write there at the end? Sorry, for marine data. You said it really needs to be a global gateway for marine data and to have that position. So thank you very much for stepping in for your colleague. You did an excellent job, and I don't know how long you're around, but
at least for the morning.
At least for the morning, great. All right, you may take your seat. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, just if I may take just half a moment before I invite the panelists to come to the stage. Is there anyone new we can't see online who may be new today, but I know there are a few new people who weren't here yesterday? Raise your hands if you're in the room for the first time today. Just a few new people. So just for the benefit of a little bit of a reminder, Vilma is right. What did come up yesterday? Well, it's like a no-brainer for you. You will acknowledge this. Funding, money. This came up very much front and center in some of the word clouds that we put out there. What does EMODnet need? Also, there was visibility. Not everybody. We're great, there is an ecosystem, but there are so many people out there, right down to the divers and the data scientists and the researchers. Not everybody knows about this brilliant network, so there was conversation around visibility. And as we heard there from Vilma, input from broader stakeholders. We looked at the land to sea connection. That came up quite a bit. And we had one speaker also say, can we get perhaps away from the theory and down to the ground and sometimes decide where our priorities lie, make sure that we're out there and we understand where might we need to make decisions. Of course, there was talk about making the data really accessible to all the different kinds of stakeholders, policymakers, right? They may not understand how to use it. So there was saying, please keep in mind the different users, alongside the fact that it needs to be accessible quality data. So look at those profiles. I also heard member states. Member states can really feed back. So in this talk about let's ingest more data, there was also the comment that member states can feed back on what they want, how this service should evolve, what they can put in. So that dialogue really does need to continue in both directions. For me, standards, harmonisation, harmonisation, harmonisation. I think those were some of the words that came up the most. And one thing that we did talk about, you know, across the board, people need training in specific tools and technologies, right? So where's the money for that? Who's going to do it? And it's so important that we have a next generation of data stewards and a next generation of young ocean professionals. Otherwise, all of this that we want to see, we might not have the skill sets there or the people to carry it forward. So that was some of the things for the benefit of those who are coming to panels and weren't here yesterday. So let us start on that first panel now. We are going to, as we heard there was a call from Vilma. We'd really like to get more private sector input, so we're going to go a little bit behind the scenes of that. We're going to see whether private and the public sector representatives from the EMODnet associated partnership and beyond that, they're going to look at how EMODnet is already serving research, innovation, the blue economy, okay, with marine data and knowledge assets. So all of that to boost competitiveness and innovation. And then, as we've done before, what do we need to go further? How can it further evolve the network to better serve emerging needs and requirements, and also have that interface with the private sector? So I'm going to ask in this order first, now by name, first name to sit in, and then I will introduce them when they're right in front of you. That might be easier for you, the audience. So Alessandro Pititto, can you come and sit in the last seat there, and I'll introduce you in a moment. Louis Demargne, can you please sit here? And then we can have nice warm claps and hugs and all the rest. Well, maybe not hugs, you might not want a hug. Olga Podrazka, thank you. A warm welcome to you. If you can sit in. Melanie Symes, please. If you can park yourself here. And Julie Olivier as well. There we go. Perfect. All right. So let's just move that. You've come the very long way round, but yes, there you go. Thank you so much. All right. Here we have the director, head of the international division, expert in the blue economy at COGEA Group. So do you want to just say what the group does in 3 or 4 sentences for the benefit of these good people? Over to you.
Well, the company is a consultant in Italy, and we work both for the Italian public administration and for EU institutions with a range of services, studies, socioeconomic studies, or data management.
Thank you so much. I'm going to ask a big favour. First of all, look, the Italian, don't all speed up, because it's tough when it's super fast, and do hold the mic there, because it really does make a difference for the back of the room. Important to add here for Alessandro, EMODnet Human Activities Coordinator, because we haven't heard from anyone on the panel yet on that front. So Louis, Global Key Account Manager at International Geodata Specialist Fugro. Can you just say a little bit more about what your company does?
Yes, good morning, everyone. So Fugro collects ocean data and turns that data into insights that our clients use to better manage their assets, whether it's a built-up asset like a wind farm or a pipeline, or whether it's a natural asset like a mangrove or a seagrass meadow. So.
And here's a quick one to throw in. To the extent to which, how do those different stakeholders that you're advising, do some come with no sort of, tell us everything, we don't have any knowledge about, we don't really understand about MSP, and are some really quite, no, we want to do the right thing, we need to know, give us all that info. Is it quite a breadth of approach?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, you have clients who almost come to us and say, this is what I want in the most detailed way. Okay. And there we try to advise in different approaches. And then there are clients who come to us with very little knowledge of what's out there. And then that's a very interesting conversation, because then it's a more consultative approach. What is it that you actually want to know? And then from there, you try to find a solution, combine different technologies together to provide that insight that they're looking for.
Are they generously mindful about what they need to look out for in order to ensure this correct balance between, you know, being very careful about resources, being very careful about the environment, and, you know, the economic side of things? Are they mindful of this balance?
Not always. They come with a very specific business question, in a sense. It could be, you know, how do I get rid of the litter that's on my beach? Let's say something like that. Or can I how can I guarantee that this wind farm will provide the resources, or the wind resource, or the energy resource that I'm expecting it to, so I can invest in it. The question about the sustainability,
am I doing potential harm?
Is a secondary question,
okay.
but that's where we come in and we help them and advise them on that as well.
I just wanted to drill down in that to get a feel for, it's because it's very interesting. Olga, so meteorology and oceanography specialist at the Dutch maritime contracting company Van Oord, associated partner in EMODnet. What do you need to tell us about Van Oord?
So as you said, it is Van Oord is marine contractor. I think more well known as a dredging company. Previously, those were the main projects that we were involved. Now more involved in the renewable energy, building offshore wind farms.
Okay.
And we are a partner of EMODnet, and in this context. I think in the context of the partnership with EMODnet, I can say that during our project and project executions, we deploy lots of measurement devices, wave buoys. We measure the waves, we measure the currents, we gather bathymetric data. So this is the wealth that we can share with EMODnet.
Thank you very much. Melanie, so this is great. We're going to hear from the Marinas. Melanie is manager at TransEurope Marinas. So you are specializing in advancing marina sustainability, offering guidance in best practices, as I understand, and environmental stewardship. So what else should we know about what's going on there, just as a top-line intro?
Okay, TransEurope Marinas is a group of 80 marinas across 11 countries.
Hang on a minute. I wasn't going to go into first questions. I was just going to let you say a little... No, don't. I was going to do that in the order, but just to say a little bit more in an introduction about who you are and what you do.
Well, that's TransEurope.
Is that... Okay, sorry, forgive me. I'm totally messing you up, aren't I? Go ahead, sorry.
Yep.
Bad moderating.
That's all very good. Yes, we are TransEurope Marinas. We got involved with EMODnet about 3 years ago. It's been fascinating to see that there is a real demand for data, but a lack of capacitation.
Oh, a lack of on your,
Yes, in terms of using sensors, in terms of scientific understanding, and data literacy, essentially.
Okay. And thank you. Sorry about the hitch there. And Julie Olivier, she is a special advisor in EU and international affairs for the Department of Coastal, Marine and Polar Research at Project Management Agency of the Research Centre Jülich, which supports the implementation of German governmental programs. But you also serve as the Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership. So that's this cooperation instrument under Horizon Europe. What else might you need to say to fill that out?
Yes, that's a handful.
It is a handful. That's why I didn't rush.
I just want to focus on the Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership, which is also a European initiative like EMODnet, so we are quite connected. And this partnership brings countries with the European Commission together to align research and innovation priorities to develop a sustainable blue economy.
Thank you very much. Okay, so coming back to Alessandro and coming back to this coordination of the human activities thematic, just to be clear for the audience, why is EMODnet such a go-to for the service for the blue economy specifically?
Yes, well, a few years ago, I think it was probably the first EMODnet contract we had with the Commission, we had to carry out a task. It was in our contract, and it was called... don't remember the exact name, but something along the lines of establishing synergies or benchmarking similar initiatives worldwide. We never completed that task. And you know why? Because we searched and searched, but in fact, there was no other comparable initiative in scope and ambition. So before someone jumps up on stage and tries to kill me, I'm not saying that there are no valuable ocean data initiatives worldwide. I'm just saying that when you look at scope, ambition, vision, there's just nothing like EMODnet. And Lord, did we search, but we couldn't find anything. So why it's a go-to service today? Because we heard it a million times these days. It offers a wealth of marine data, interoperable, reusable, harmonized. Today I'd like to focus on the word free. Now everyone knows that EMODnet data is free, free of charge, whatever the use. And it's obvious, no, isn't it? But in fact, there are some powerful implications that are less obvious. Because usually, normally people respond to incentives. No, if you increase the price of something, people will consume a bit less of that. And if you reduce it, they will tend to consume a bit more. If you offering something at no price at all, people will just eat it up. And this is true for data as well. Now, put yourself in the shoes of a young entrepreneur, a startup in the blue economy. You're basically getting access to this wealth of marine data for free, which means for you that or for us, that we're giving people leeway to be bold and experiment with new approaches, bright ideas, crazy ideas. When you're doing something crazy, there's a high chance you're going to be failing. And if you have to pay a lot of money to acquire data, for example, you might just give it up because, well, my chances are slim, so maybe it's not worth it. By giving data for free and good quality data, because that's also important. I can have a wealth of data, but if it's crap data, I'm not going to use it anyway. By giving free data, we're essentially unleashing people's true potential, which is the ability to come up with bright and crazy ideas. Something that could be very expensive, but we're essentially doing just that. And with the Edito project, which is not exactly EMODnet, but okay, closely connected, we're now also offering a technological infrastructure. So we're really empowering people and blue economy entrepreneurs to come up with these bright, crazy ideas. And I think this world really needs crazy ideas.
Thank you, and thank you so much for underlining that point because, well, it might have come up in the breakouts yesterday. It wasn't emphasized like that in the panels yesterday, and for you to say, you need a certain freedom, and that freedom comes from feeling less risk, and feeling less risk links to having that free data. So just the very fact it's free gives people the possibility to innovate in a way that they might not have been able to or might not have taken a similar approach. Let's turn to you, Louis, and one example of how you're actually Fugro is actually using the harmonized marine data specifically to pick up there on what Alessandro said, to support the innovation which is needed for Europe to remain competitive.
Well, we actually use them in a very operational way. So we have, about 30 vessels plying the oceans every day. Some are crewed, some are uncrewed, so we have also a lot of equipment, a lot of people out there in what is a very hostile environment, the ocean. I'm not teaching lessons here, but everybody knows that in this room. So what's very important to us is to make sure that our estimating of how much effort a project will involve and the planning is extremely important. And we use EMODnet primarily for that, to make sure that the project is as efficient as possible and that we keep our people safe. So we're going to use all sorts of data from EMODnet and other platforms as well, Copernicus Marine, etc. But we look at the bathymetry data, we look at the seabed morphology data, tide, waves, currents, and we bring all of that together into our planning. Perhaps what not a lot of people know is that, so we work very much on a project-by-project basis, very much like Van Oord, and sometimes our projects are based on a lump sum. So if we underestimate the amount of effort, it can be very difficult for us. So that's one way that we use the EMODnet data. One thing I'd like to note that in preparing for this talk, I spoke to different colleagues within Fugro, and it's interesting to see that the more seasoned oceanographers and engineers in the company tend to use EMODnet just to look for what data is out there, but they won't download the data. They'll go to, if it's NOAA data, they'll go to the NOAA source and download it there. Why? I think it's just because that's what they've done every time and they know the quality of that data or they know how it's been processed. But the younger generations coming in, perhaps because they've been exposed to EMODnet during their studies, are very comfortable using that data. So there's maybe something there that we can look at promoting EMODnet a bit more in the universities, for example, perhaps.
Thank you very much. Interesting. I was going to ask you, but I suppose perhaps you answer that in saying you see a difference in depending, the young professionals and those who are used to doing something different. I was just going to ask for capacity, picking up on Melanie. I mean, I suppose given the nature of what your organisation, the offerings, you don't struggle to find the right skill sets, or am I wrong in that?
We do struggle. We do struggle. I mean, there are even what we've seen, for example, just taking hydrographic surveying. We're seeing some university dropping that particular discipline from their curriculum, and so that's worrying. So what we tend to do is we take individuals, young career professionals, into the organisation. Then it takes 2 or 3 years to really train them up to the kind of levels of skills that we need. But then they want to move on very quickly as well. So it's really it can be a struggle. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Olga. I think you have a slide as well. Is that right? And again, you know, from this associated partner point of view, one example perhaps of how your organisation is using the network, but particularly coming back to the overarching, you know, title, boosting competitiveness, stimulating innovation in service of the blue economy. That's where we're getting at.
Yes, so in Van Oord we use EMODnet for different purposes. You can see that, for example, my environmental colleagues use habitat maps frequently. But I came from Meta-Ocean Group, so I will focus on this discipline. And within my group, the most desired and frequently used data sets are bathymetric data. And
which data?
Bathymetry data.
Bathymetric, yeah.
And data from EMODnet physics, wave, currents, tides, same as in Fugro. And we use it is extremely easy to use and streamline our processes. With the Meta-Ocean Group, especially during the tender process, we need to, in very short time, assess the climate at the location that we will be working. So good quality, fine resolution bathymetry data allows us to build models in very fast and streamlined way. And then using measurements like wave current measurements allows us to validate and calibrate our wave and hydrodynamic models. And this directly translates to better assessment of the wave climate, which then translates to better assessment of workability. We know how many days per year we will be working. Okay. We know we are better in assessing the cost of the project execution. We know also more about the safety of the operation during the project execution. And obviously, we are more competitive because then we can adapt the price to the actual conditions on the site, rather than relying on kind of more coarse estimates. What I wanted to say also is that, interestingly, we use EMODnet even without sometimes knowing that we are using it. Because during the tenders and in the projects, we rely on the data from consultancies. And consultancies all the time use EMODnet for validation of the model, for calibration of their models. So yeah, even if my colleagues didn't use before EMODnet, they were using it by proxy.
Okay. I think there's also a wealth of potential multipliers there that they need to know indeed, it would be good they need to know they're using it a little bit in the same vein as we heard from Louis. What I pick up there is the word that you have both used, is that it helps planning. And planning, of course, makes things can help things be more cost effective, more competitive. You can make those adjustments in real time because the information you are getting is so much less coarse, I think, was the word you used. Okay, Melanie, so now I promise I won't cut you off. So why, well, just to reinforce for us why marinas need, you know, marine data, and, you know, how is EMODnet supporting this need? Because there is, I mean, you have so much on your plate to really boost sustainable practices and innovations, I would imagine. There's a lot to be done there. So how does it plug in and help?
Thank you. Well, if I could very quickly say thank you to Kate, Larkin and to Cara for inviting me to join this. And also, very kindly, they submitted an excellent article to the Sustainability Guide for Marinas, which has been very helpful and a great introduction to data. To give a bit of context, so about 3 years ago, together with the European boating industry and various members who I know who are here today, Patrick, I can see you, Antonio, Joe, we started talking about the possibility for marinas to both obtain data and to contribute data as infrastructure, stable infrastructure that spans the land-sea interface. So TransEurope is a perfect canvas for that. As I said, we've got 80 marinas in 11 countries, very diverse scenarios, so it's good to see that. So back to your point then, why is it important for this to be relevant to marinas? Essentially, if they're going to host sensors, they really need to have something for them. They need to be able to use the data in a meaningful form, and it to correspond to their operations. So there are probably three main examples as to why that's relevant, mostly for safety and operational purposes. When you are experiencing extreme weather events, sensors will help you, of course, by dint of current and historical data, understand how to prepare resilience in the marina. From an educational perspective, we're very lucky to be part of Lancelot and the JPI Marinas network. And so this supported infrastructure is helping to deliver a lot of information, a lot of knowledge to the marinas. In that way, this feeds their capacity to be able to educate their marina users, their marina boaters, which in turn supports their certification processes and is a massive benefit for them, also from a sort of eco proficiency scenario, which is something we're all interested in. I think finally it's supporting the wider marina community. So marinas are hubs for the boating industry. They're bringing a lot of people. We've got divers, boaters, water sports enthusiasts, residents, and one example might be boat yard users. We're talking about the new generation. They need data products to be able to have reliable understanding of sea depths and conditions in the marina. They don't have 80, or probably less than that, 40 years of experience to be able to know that by sight. We're working with regeneration projects. So just very, very simply, sea temperature in different oyster bed installations will give them some information. So yes, I mean, the more people we talk to, the more exciting it is and the more opportunities we can see.
And just when you say, unless I missed it, and that's me, just very briefly, this issue of the win-win, you said if you are hosting sensors, then you need to get something out of it. So just clarify what you mean by that.
Okay, well, the scientists obviously have the interest in generating the data for scientific purposes, for policy purposes. The marinas, if they are going to be engaged, stimulated, to have the impulse in keeping those sensors, in ensuring that they're maintained, ensuring that they make use of the data, then they have to have something in it for themselves. So at the moment, we're identifying those different uses, and there are a considerable amount, so it's quite exciting.
Thank you very much. So, Julie, same, Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership. Can you explain just for us how EMODnet is supporting that, and also just wider research and innovation in Europe? What might you not have heard already that needs to be said?
Yes, thank you, and also for inviting me in the Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership. It's really a pleasure to be here today, and I must say, really the meeting and getting to know the community is really inspiring. I actually brought an object, obviously borrowed from my children, but just as a token of the blue economy and to say, well, that the blue economy concerns everybody. So the Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership, as said, is a research innovation cooperation instrument with countries and the European Commission. So the partners are national ministries, governmental agencies, research organizations, and many partners are actually in the room. So from this perspective, of course, we need more of EMODnet's services for marine knowledge, because knowledge, innovation, and competitiveness go hand in hand. But there are significant knowledge gaps, so we need to address them so that we can unlock the full potential of a sustainable blue economy. For instance, we need research and innovation to improve understanding of the impact of human activities on ocean health and biodiversity, so that we can develop a blue economy which is regenerative. We need research and innovation to upscale nature-based solutions, to enhance coastal resilience for circularity. And also we need research and innovation so that we can optimize the use of marine space and also de-risk multi-use towards investors. So the EU Ocean Research Innovation Strategy is underway, but to sustain knowledge, we also need to talk and to plan for research and innovation for the ocean and the next multi-annual framework program, and Horizon Europe. And to finish, I would like to give you a taste of what research innovation does for the blue economy through the partnership. So for instance, we have a digital twin on material erosion of marine infrastructures. We have one project dealing with sound maps for offshore wind and the maritime industry. We also have a digital twin modeling the ocean environment for offshore wind production. So it's AI-driven. We have been talking much about artificial intelligence. AI-driven, scalable, on-demand models. And actually in the consortium, we have a Vattenfall defining the user needs. It's also always cross-sectoral collaboration, and we also have EMODnet physics coordinator part, Antonio, who was on the stage yesterday. So much about the connection between EMODnet and the Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership, and these partnerships and more will actually, these projects will be here tomorrow for the Digital Ocean Forum, but you have many more, to advance research and innovation for a knowledge-based sustainable ocean planning and management to achieve a competitive and regenerative blue economy for Europe.
And how would you, if I'm sitting again, I asked this question to someone yesterday, but here's another scenario. I'm a 12-year-old sitting at a bus stop, and you say the words to me, regenerative blue economy. How would you explain that in a couple of sentences? How should I understand that?
Well, it means it doesn't harm. I'm thinking now I'm talking to my children, right? A bit, even younger than 12 years old. So, a wind turbine which doesn't harm the fish, but instead makes more of it.
Yeah. Thank you. That's absolute. Thank you very much for getting. I really put you on the spot there. You did not want to have to do that, did you? But you answered it beautifully. Thank you. Let me just check in with the audience, if I may. First of all, before I ask you to take part in a word cloud, anything from the floor, while you have the energy, while you have been boosted by Danish pastries and coffee and eggs. No, you're all good, no questions, no comments, nothing to share. I'm checking. You happy to share it online? So can we ask, this is the prompt, good people, how should EMODnet evolve its offer to boost competitiveness in the blue economy? That's the question. What does our audience and the audience online, please, think that it needs to do this? So please, let's just give you a moment to answer. And then I'm going to just take the second round is going to take us, well, before I move into the second round, actually, one thing at a time. I will speak in a moment. Let's see that coming in. Mandatory data sharing. Thank you for putting that in because it's a precursor to this next round of questions with these panelists. Encourage data sharing. I like that. One is encourage and one is mandatory. So, promote services, okay. Visibility, again, that's come up many times. More data. Provide what is needed. Who put provide what is needed? Is that somebody in the room? I was just curious to get behind that, but generally people don't like to raise their hands when they put something into the word cloud. Okay. Acknowledge provider. Yep, success stories. Emerging sectors, invest in early career scientists. So a lot of those things that we also touched upon yesterday. Before we move on, and just you can see the time, we have about 25 minutes. We started late. Was there anything I was just going to ask to you, to Olga, to Louis, that you think there's an area where EMODnet could strengthen its offer in terms of the particular needs of your sector? Just anything you would suggest?
I'm going to go with biodiversity because a lot of in the short term, what we're seeing our clients, there's more and more focus on what's the impact of these infrastructures, whether it's coastal or offshore infrastructures, on the environment and on marine life. And then how does that then influence regulations that they need to comply with? So I think information on species trends, whether it's through eDNA or other technologies, I think is something that could be really interesting for some of our industry.
Interesting.
Just to pick one.
Yeah, no, but absolutely. So they know that they can be, what do they need to think about ahead of time in order to ensure that they are compliant?
That's right. And also because we're seeing some licensing bids now from state governments, starting to include more and more criteria on, well, what are you going to do to ensure that there's a net biodiversity, net positive biodiversity impact? So that relates to the competitiveness.
Yeah. Olga.
From my perspective, it would be, I'm a meta-ocean specialist, so I will talk about meta-ocean data again. But our projects are mainly located in the coastal areas in shallow water. And I think we would greatly benefit from a more fine resolution bathymetric data. Now I heard that it is 100 meters. For majority of purposes, this is sufficient. For projects closer to the coast, this is too coarse. It would be nice to have more finer resolution data. And obviously, wave and current measurements in the coastal areas. And this is lacking. I think this is something that we can contribute to, and I will talk about it a bit later. But definitely currents and waves in the shallow waters is something that we need.
Thank you very much. Again, a nice precursor to this question, because you are collecting data. I mean, we heard this to boost, to inform your own business, your own blue economy businesses, right from the planning stages, far out and beyond. You've given some examples of the kinds of data that you are using, that you need. And the issue, of course, is about sharing that data. This is what we're going to focus on here. So the first thing, Alessandro, from a kind of the bigger picture zoom out, how does EMODnet support the private sector for that data sharing and other beneficial activities? What's it doing to kind of encourage it? We heard the word there. Over to you.
No, there's quite a lot, in fact. So, for example, guidelines. There's a data ingestion facility that makes stakeholders' lives easier, of course. There are associated partnership schemes. I think on behalf of the whole EMODnet family, I would say that we tend to go to whatever lengths to make sure that people can share their data. And it's quite critical because I mean the people on stage here, they do share data, but with them it's like preaching to the converted. The real challenge, I think, is to convince the rest of the world. I think there are a lot of people just use EMODnet data as free riders. Okay, they consume data, but they don't offer anything in return, which is totally fine, by the way. But I think we should really be clear on what's in it for stakeholders to share. We've got to convince them. We've got to offer a strong value proposition, and then again, we've got to make their life easy. And I think the data ingestion facility, despite the name, it's a technical word, isn't it? But in fact, it's very easy. I mean, it's like a 5 to 10 minute process to share the data with EMODnet if you're interested, and it works perfectly.
And in order to be specific, let's say you were speaking to a stakeholder. I mean, you were very generous in a way there. You said they consume, they don't offer. It's okay. In order to do that convincing, what would your argument be? I mean, you pick the kind of stakeholder or from the private sector you'd want to be convincing. What would you say?
It's a good question. I think there's a lot on the website, but I think a very good argument that is often underrated is when you become, for example, an associated partner, and you work with us in a way, you benefit from an amazing network. That is also important because the data is there. Okay, either you share or you don't share, you can use it anyway. So it's not evident that you have an advantage. But when you start hanging out with us, even parties, etc., that is also a benefit. But really, you can leverage the expertise, the people sitting here in the audience. It's amazing, and you can really learn a lot and extract value from these people. So that is probably an asset that is often underrated. Yeah.
We need to clone you and send you out.
Okay.
I really think we'll use AI for that. We need to sort of, perfect ambassador. Come on, EMODnet, why wouldn't you use it? Just on that score, before I ask you the questions, which is more about the kinds of data that you offer, so to either Louis or Olga, just going back to that, do you feel a sense of responsibility? Alessandro said there, well, in effect, we're preaching to the converted. Do you feel a sense of responsibility at some level to be multipliers, to increase the visibility in your respective areas and with even your competitors in the field?
At Fugro, we're very firm believers in sharing industry data, and we believe that by sharing data, that whole entire data set global becomes richer, and the richer that data, then that has a huge impact on boosting ocean science, which then has a return on investment, so to speak, to industry in the form of, for example, improved weather and ocean forecasting models, which allow then the company to operate more safely, more efficiently, etc. Right? So we were actually co-chairing the Ocean Decade Corporate Data Group, which is all about looking at how we can lower those barriers for companies to share data. And Fugro has been sharing bathymetry data through its in-transit bathymetry program, which is when we switch on our sensors between the port of call and the area where we have to do our project. And we've shared more than 3 million square kilometers of data through Seabed 2030 and through EMODnet. But we also now want to see that we're not the only ones with Van Oord to push for that. And so through industry associations like IMCA, like IOGP, we're also promoting these guidelines and these good practices to get more of these industry companies to share data.
And just to plug in, before I turn to Olga, just to plug into your phrase there, which, again, a very polite phrase and probably the right phrase, lower the barriers. Often the barriers are, I'm not sharing that, oof, that belongs to us, why should I do that? I mean, is that me just being way too simplistic? Or there are obviously other barriers, I guess, in terms of capacity, in terms of even thinking that you should, but what would you say the main barrier is to the sector being willing to share?
Yeah, I think there's a technical barrier and what I would call a more political one. So technical is companies say, yes, I'm willing to share, but I don't want it to take much time or resources, right? So how can we make that as easy as possible for companies to share? Whether it's tools that automate the data mining or the data formatting so they can be uploaded to EMODnet easily, or why not? I was just talking to Kate, fund a couple of interns that go into these companies for 6 months, do the data mining, and then put it up onto EMODnet. So there's a technical barrier. The political one is more, I want to share the data, but I want to make sure that I'm not going to be dragged into court because I'm sharing something I shouldn't be supposed to be. So one of the solutions there is this policy recommendation that the Corporate Data Group has put forward through IOC, which is to encourage state governments to implement regulations where companies have to share the data as part of their licensing or permitting process. This is happening in the UK through the Crown Estate, for example.
Is it? Okay. Interesting. Olga, same thing, just briefly, what marine data is Van Oord sharing, and do you see that expanding? Is there something else that might be coming in terms of the type of data?
So it is very difficult to follow Louis because he took all my points.
Okay.
But yes, I personally feel a responsibility to share the data. I come from an academic background, so it is kind of like within my bloodstream, and the open data access. But also Van Oord shares the same feel for responsibility. We are also part of the UN Ocean Decade, and we already have developed guidelines for sharing fauna data and bathymetric data. We are working on guidelines for sharing meta-ocean data. Also, as Van Oord, we feel that just through participation in these initiatives, we can encourage other partners within industry to start sharing the data. Kind of like positive competitiveness, showing that Van Oord shares their data, maybe Boskalis will join, maybe other marine contractors will join. And when we talk about the limitations in sharing the data, why it is difficult, I completely agree. There are technical ones. So within the company, we want to spend as much time as possible working on tenders and projects, and there is not always space to create the process of data sharing. But I feel EMODnet helps with this. There is ingestion portal. However, we had also personal communication with Antonio, who helped with the preparation of the data, preparation of metadata. We are talking about streamlining the process so that it is almost automative. And another obstacle is authorizations from the clients, from local authorities. We are working in the EE zones, so to be able to share the bathymetry data, for example, we need approval from the client and local authorities, and this proved very difficult. But we are trying to go around it, and we are planning to share bathymetry data, in-transit bathymetry data. This is our priority for next year. Because we own the sensors, this is our data, it is much easier.
Thank you so much. Let me thank you, and only in the interest of time, I'm parking it there and coming to you, Melanie. Again, in other examples of any observations, you've touched upon it already, that marinas are collecting, that could be integrated, something that's coming, and also the challenge to increasing data sharing. Perhaps you can come back also on this issue you said of capacity as well. So there's the win-win that's super important, there's the capacity. What else are you sharing, and where else are there obstacles to that?
Okay, so I think probably challenges and opportunities here. In terms of data that we're collecting already, it's very simple parameters, because we're using these cost-effective sensors as a sort of stepping stone to an introduction to collecting data. So we're talking sea temperature, wave height, sea level, for example. One of the challenges is that marina managers are not data scientists. They're not marine scientists. If you give them something that is slightly complex, they're not going to use it. They're not able to calibrate sensors, they're not able to validate the readings. So we need to work in conjunction with scientists that are able to do that for us, at least until there are plug-and-play tools that you can just let them get on with themselves. So to sort of increase the passivity of this exercise. And at the same time, there is, as we mentioned before, a capacitation issue. The marine industry has been preparing for some time, certainly in marinas, the smart marina concept, but we're really not getting very far. We don't understand how to create an ontology. We don't understand about standardization or harmonization. So we really need a hand to be able to get there. So I'd probably disagree with what Alessandro said. We're not ready to deliver data, but we have the infrastructure that can support the sensors to be able to do so. So we also have the people. We have the boaters that love this sort of thing. So there's a sort of army out there of people that can contribute to the observing community but don't know how. And to what Olga says, we have a partner, Savvy Navi. They create piloting software which facilitates the boating experience. So that's something we're trying to do, push people more into boating, push them, encourage them, invite them. But the bathymetric data that Savvy Navi uses is probably more appropriate for commercial boats and not recreational boating that are shallower, closer to the shore, divers, people like that. So we all need higher resolution data there. We are working with Alessandro, so sorry about disagreeing with you, on mapping marinas. This is very exciting because it's the first time that we're going to have visibility and talking to maritime spatial planning. There's certainly a potential role for us to get involved in there. We're active contributors to that space. But collecting data is complicated. There are data ethics involved. People are really not sure about sharing data. We're not able to inform them about the relevant data ethics, so we need capacitation in that respect. But equally, they don't actually have the data in a usable format. So we're really starting from the very beginning. So we need some help. Anyone at all who's out there ready to help us, please, you're very welcome.
And also just to plug into, because obviously, again, moderating across different sectors, the issue of data sharing comes up everywhere. What I also pull out of what you say is so important when one talks data, like this great lump. Of course, there is a willingness to share different kinds of data when one is less fearful for the reasons that you said, the complications, will I get dragged into court, is it the right thing to share? I think very often even just understanding what the possible data to share is unpacking, and then you can make the choices about where, oh yeah, that's not an issue, that one needs more thinking about. But your message is 100% clear on capacity, willingness is there, but we need some help in the tools, the training of using those tools, helping take us forward. Julie, for you, and I'm just mindful of time, but I'm not cutting in on you. Again, putting together the Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership, putting that together with EMODnet, how can they best collaborate in order, having heard what you said, some of the barriers are really to advancing marine data sharing by specifically the private sector. What more could be done there to help? You've heard where the hindrances are.
Yes, thank you. And actually, it's been great to hear about data demand and offer from the private sector, because the Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership has initiated a line of work with the support of EMODnet on advancing corporate data sharing under the framework of the European Ocean Pact. And well, from the World Cloud, I think the audience knows quite well what is at stake. But to put it under context, again, the blue economy, the private sector is increasingly generating ocean observation data, right? The blue economy report was mentioned. So the latest figures are more than 1,000% growth for the offshore wind sector. Think about all the marine data, which that means, right? So, but the problem is that this data is often not reused, and it's a loss, and it limits the potential of blue innovation. So now we have this momentum, and with the IOC, as Louis mentioned, with the corporate data group, a few champions leading by example. The guidelines are also a great tool, and we really can build on that. And it's important that EMODnet gets the resources to be able to engage with the private sector and to really leverage the surging amounts of marine data which is produced by the private sector. And the Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership is engaging with a collaborative action, and we offer this cross-sectoral community with governments, governmental agencies, research organization, and we have a lot of private entities through our projects, already more than 100 through our first co-funded project. Well, we have about 40 projects, co-funded projects, and the third joint transnational call closed just last week with a record high number of applications. And I want to mention that corporate data sharing will be at the agenda of the partnerships symposium week next February. It will be in Bucharest, so this is also an invitation to join us in Bucharest. But to get back what the other panelists were saying, there is really a lot of work to do, and it's not only about companies mobilizing. There is also work to do also on the regulatory side. We need to simplify sharing. A lot of examples were given on that. To target the right incentives, we need to talk to each other across sector, as you were saying. Standardization again, and really actually also really understanding what the limits of open data. So just to finish, under the EU Ocean Observation and Initiative, of course, the priority is really to coordinate, to integrate the national ocean observing and monitoring systems. But for fit-for-purpose European ocean observing system, we also need to look at these growing amounts of data which are collected by the private sector, and to think really how we can leverage the power of the data for a sustainable and competitive blue economy.
Thank you. And you, I mean, I really take the word surging. I think it's both, you have this kind of feeling great. There's that surging amount of data. There's a willingness, but there are barriers. And we need to have a regulatory approach also to those barriers, and also decide, in terms of priority, how we would approach that in regulatory terms, as well as others. Any last word before I close? Anything that you didn't get to say in the context of our discussions, how you think that EMODnet can scale and accelerate its data sharing partnerships, what can offer, what it might need, what did we not get to say in order to really, enhance the blue economy and competitiveness at large? What did you not get to say? Yeah.
Just a small point then. So going back to Savi Navi as one of the partners of EMODnet, there are now various data products out there. We're not engaging with them. They're producing data which isn't being reused. But we recognize that a younger generation is relying on those data products to get into recreational boating in our case. So we need to appease them. We need to be in contact with them. We need to engage with them. And we're going to do that with data products. So there's a huge demand, probably not yet recognized from our industry, to be able to work more constructively with data products and have this data on data aggregation platforms like EMODnet.
So even before you get to the capacity, there's more visibility, there's more raising awareness to be done, even before you get to matching the willingness with the capacity to deliver. There's still visibility, there's still raising awareness across the board.
Indeed, but we're preparing for the next generation, I think is the key point there.
Makes me feel almost obsolete already, Melanie. Yes, Louis?
Maybe two things. One is if you ask industry for just give us all the data you have, that's not going to work. So I think EMODnet helping us to prioritize what are the top 3 data sets that are really needed, and we know that industry has, and let's focus on that. That gives us everybody focus, and I think we can move forward that way. The other one is just if EMODnet can help us also in the industry. Maybe I'll use the word inspire, maybe with some stories or explaining the value to industry of sharing this data. Why is it important? Why does it help you ultimately? I think those are two things I would
Absolutely.
highlight.
And what does it look like? What does it look like? And also, when you're going to use the word competitiveness, you really need to put the meat on the bones of that. It means that if you do, you end up increasing the size of the pie for everybody, which means everybody benefits. It doesn't mean you give something away, get less, and somebody gets more, which I think the world in which we live is a difficult concept to get one's head around. Anything else, Alessandro?
No, it's such a privilege for me to be the first one to be saying this today. We need more money, yay! No, the serious version is, the Ocean Pact is calling for scaling up ambition to an enormous extent. It's not just about EMODnet, it's about all of us working in ocean affairs. If we want to scale up ambition, we have to scale up investment accordingly. There's no other obvious way around that.
Say that maybe first point that we are very excited because we are now sharing our first data set, wave data set, and hopefully it will be available on EMODnet very soon. And we are going to share 2-3 wave data sets per year. This is the ambition. And to the point about how to encourage others. I think the success stories and example stories are very important part to explain the industry partners that it is for their benefit. That if you want to have better forecast, you need to feed forecasters the good quality data, both in the offshore and the coast. If you want to go down with your prices, be more competitive, you need more reliable assessment of workability. So those are the highlights that I think we should push forward when talking about EMODnet.
Thank you. Julie, anything else to add as a last word?
I like the term EMODnet as global gateway for marine data. I think that's also for the Sustainable Blue Economy Partnerships projects, that's only a natural step because they all have also mandatory data management plans. They are trained on open science and they already use or feed into EMODnet. But also get away from marine data from the private sector. And there maybe my message is just, let's talk together, collaboration really to understand and to get back to what was said at the beginning and by GRC, but the socio-economic value of data, really to understand the value of data across science, policy, and research to be able to upscale sharing.
Absolutely, and I couldn't agree more. I think that's such a good point to be made. You've got to get those best practice or just any practice case studies out there, because those who are willing to just share because they think that's what I should be doing. This is where the world is and I need to be a part of it. It doesn't matter what comes back or not, I'm going to share. let's be realistic. There needs to be a win-win in any case, and one of the best ways to do that is to actually put it in front of you. This is what it gets you. You know, as we say, a best practice, a story, a picture, it's worth 1,000 words and more. So thank you very much for that. Thank you very much to our audience. It's time that we take a break now, because we have one final plenary, but we need to fuel ourselves with coffee, and probably, I'm sure there's pastries out there. Also for the online audience, first of all, before you leave your seats, please, a very warm applause for these great speakers who've kicked off the day. Thank you very, very much. All right, I know you've got a plane to catch, but I hope at some point, or several planes, but I hope you will stay, because this final session is, of course, all about the service evolution under the European Ocean Pact, and we need to hear all about that. So see you soon, those of you online. Thank you. The sugar will sustain you and you will crash afterwards at 12:30. That's my deep wish, because there was more sugar in every chunk of that than you could shake a stick at, which is such a stupid expression, but I just used it. All right, if you can take a seat. Thank you so very much. I think you may agree that everything that we have discussed thus far, and sorry, welcome to you also online, everything that we have discussed thus far in these panels leads to this point, because this is all about how this service evolves, where's it going, what does it need to do so apart from hardcore cash, okay? So I'm going to invite now Kate Larkin, head of the EMODnet Secretariat, to amplify more this vision 2035. Who in the room actually did take a brochure and had a look, or had a look online? Raise your hand if you've just... Okay. And who in the room was on that team who has, which I think is amazing, so many people engaged, drafted the vision? Who on that first evening when Kate was... Okay, so you're all in the room. Perfect. So over to you. I think the time has come. Warm thanks to Kate Larkin.
Dear distinguished guests, dear all. Yesterday, at the opening of the Open Conference 2025, I gave you a snapshot of the EMODnet community's Vision 2035. And in this presentation, I will briefly explain the process for how we got there, and then dive into the vision recommendations in a little bit more detail, setting the stage for the service evolution discussions to come. But before we look forward, let's remind ourselves of where the Vision 2035 started. At the Open Conference 2023, just 2 years ago, the community launched a call to action. This recognised EMODnet's achievements to date, and it identified the opportunity and the urgency for EMODnet to evolve to deliver fit-for-use marine data service in a rapidly changing EU and global ocean policy landscape. In this call to action, the community pledged to collectively deliver an EMODnet vision to 2035, enabling a full and expanded functioning of EMODnet to play its major role in delivering a sustained and optimised marine data and knowledge value chain. The vision could not have been made possible without the community, and in particular the vision drafting group that I will come on to. So the vision drafting group was initiated in spring of 2024. It was spearheaded by more than 30 representatives from across all EMODnet components and key actors across the EMODnet in situ marine knowledge value chain. The VDG held 4 meetings and launched a public consultation in summer of 2024. And it also built in the latest developments from the European ocean policy landscape set in the global context. Now, these, of course, included the Ocean Pact, which had a call for evidence, and many other consultations for the multi-annual financial framework, etc. Since then, especially ocean observation, marine data and knowledge has risen even higher on the political agenda. We've had the Ocean Pact, we've had the Water Resilience Strategy, and we've also had the recognition of EMODnet being an invaluable and essential service for the European Ocean Pact itself. This also includes, of course, the EU Ocean Observation Initiative and the European Digital Twin of the Ocean. So what is our vision? We presented this yesterday, so just a reminder. By 2035, EMODnet should be a robust, fully comprehensive and actionable marine data service that empowers society to extract the full potential marine knowledge from in situ ocean and coastal observations. It should be a fully comprehensive service offer, delivered at the diversity, volume, speed, and granularity required. And it should be powered by an inclusive and comprehensive European Union marine data partnership, including all relevant in situ ocean observation and data actors. And this needs to be delivered by a step change in investment, and that means at least a doubling of EMODnet's funding from the next multi-annual financial framework from 2028 onwards. Now, the recommendations that are in the vision document, and you've seen the summary, the extended recommendations were put online yesterday as well. And with these recommendations, we present these around 4 interconnected dimensions of EMODnet's value chain. So let's dive into each of these dimensions in a little bit more detail and into the service pillars that are needed to deliver them. Let's start with the in-situ ocean observations, which of course are the foundation of EMODnet, but also of the full marine knowledge value chain. As we've seen, EMODnet's offer is very diverse, spanning all marine environmental parameters and human activities at sea. And EMODnet already provides the backbone of Europe's in-situ ocean observation data ecosystem. So in our first pillar, collect, by 2035, EMODnet will seamlessly connect and routinely integrate data from all relevant in-situ ocean observations and marine monitoring actors. EMODnet will also serve as Europe's data-to-knowledge hub for the EU Ocean Observation Initiative. And this requires a lot of facilitation, a lot of partnerships, and a lot of expanded partnership to deliver the communication, but also the data flows from member states and from every single in-situ ocean observation capability in Europe and beyond. Now let's look at the second pillar, curate. By 2035, EMODnet's core services will be a world-leading regional data hub. The digital services will be scaled, interoperable, and supported by strengthened human resources to deliver an agile and resilient service. And above all, EMODnet will deliver a new wave of excellence to ensure quality, trust, and transparency. EMODnet's core services should be flexible and scalable to secure and build in redundancy with maximum interoperability, also cross-domain. And we also need strengthened technical assistance and training services that will support member states and new data providers building capacity and data literacy in open data management across Europe. Next, we have Connect, connecting to the digital ecosystems in Europe and globally. So let's first look at the EU Marine Data Service landscape today. Later on this week, we have the Digital Ocean Forum, so I'd like to just briefly introduce the European Digital Twin Ocean. This is the next generation European Union asset for marine knowledge and ocean prediction, offering public access to state-of-the-art computer models, high-performance computing, and decision support tools. But this needs data, and not just any data, high-quality, diverse, interoperable data, and lots of it. Europe already has a high capability with its 2 EU operational marine data services, EMODnet and Copernicus Marine Service. And now these services have further strengthened their collaboration to provide the EDITO long-term infrastructure that underpins the European Digital Twin Ocean. Today, EMODnet and Copernicus Marine are providing their full offers of data and data products together on the cloud in high-speed storage facility, or otherwise known as the data lake. And EMODnet provides the in-situ marine component. This is really a paradigm shift in how the European Commission and EMODnet and Copernicus are providing their data together. And through its portal and its contribution to the Digital Twin Ocean, EMODnet directly contributes also to the mission Restore Our Ocean and Waters and its cross-cutting enabler, the Digital Ocean and Water Knowledge System, also to the European Open Science Cloud and other European data spaces. So in its vision, by 2035, EMODnet will be seamlessly providing Europe's entire capability of in-situ marine data to the European Digital Twin Ocean with the volume, diversity, speed, and granularity that it requires. The full EMODnet partnership and the wider ecosystem of stakeholders also needs to be aware and empowered and actively contributing to this European Digital Twin Ocean to maximize the potential of the digital representation of the ocean for society. And there must and should be reinforced cooperation between Copernicus Marine Service and EMODnet, building on a long-standing historical collaboration. And the framework for the European Digital Twin of the Ocean is perfect for this. Here I note that the funding outlook for this particular pillar is slightly different because there is a separate funding stream for the editorial long-term infrastructure for EMODnet and Copernicus to collaborate on. But this also needs to scale in parallel to the strengthened investment that we are asking for EMODnet. Next, we turn to the global. Internationally, EMODnet should act by 2035 as the European node of the global digital ocean ecosystem, contributing to initiatives such as the UN Ocean Decade's Digital Twin of the Ocean, DITTO, and the IOC UNESCO's Ocean Data and Information System, ODIS, connecting European in situ marine data seamlessly with international observation systems and digital services. In a large part, EMODnet is already achieving this, but we can and should do more, and all of the partnerships that we are welcomed to join and contribute to should be resourced so that we can really maximize the EU capability in the global context. So by 2030, EMODnet should have scaled its cooperation with member states, regional actors, and EU agencies, but also at the global level to ensure that we have the right partnerships in place, also with regional data services worldwide. EMODnet should also align its data products and metadata by tagging it for essential ocean variables, essential biodiversity variables, essential climate variables, to align with the global ecosystem to make our data even more interoperable and discoverable at an international scale. Then we come to the create, last but not least. So the creation of value of EMODnet's data and data products, which is absolutely fundamental. First, we look at serving EU policy, and then we look at serving research, innovation, and blue economy. So by 2030, EMODnet has scaled its cooperation with member states, regional actors, and EU agencies to standardize and optimize EU regulatory monitoring data pipelines to EMODnet and increase awareness and use of EMODnet by national authorities and regional sea conventions. By 2035, EMODnet will have operationalized comprehensive integration of regulatory monitoring data and routine use for EU policy and international ocean governance. One point I will pick out here in particular is the second one. We need to build solid trust through our data, through the provenance, and through our pipelines to ensure that we are receiving regulatory monitoring data into EMODnet, but that member states and other actors are using EMODnet's data for policy implementation even more than they are ever doing today. Next, we look at create, serving research, innovation, and the blue economy. By 2035, EMODnet will serve as an indispensable source of trusted marine information, underpinning research and innovation, and driving this innovation, its competitiveness, and a decarbonised operations across all sectors of the blue economy. One other thing I will pick out here for the blue economy is the data sharing. We've heard just now from a panel that was really advocating for this, and we saw some fantastic concrete examples of how this data sharing is in action today. But we need to scale this, and we can only scale this if we work with the private sector and with all the actors to make this happen. To achieve its vision, EMODnet must also strengthen a set of 5 cross-cutting enablers that will enhance EMODnet's efficiency, reach, and impact, and these span across the whole value chain of EMODnet. For each enabler, you will see in the vision document an overarching vision, recommendations, and key partnerships. These include enhanced engagement across all partnerships, but also a more operational and unified user feedback mechanism for EMODnet. I invite you to dive into the vision document to discover this more. Next, the service offer evolution. To deliver on its 2035 vision and maximize its potential to support the European Ocean Pact, EMODnet must scale and accelerate its service offer evolution for all relevant in situ data. And this is across all thematics, but also across 3 critical domains. We have the coast and land sea interface, the deep ocean, and the polar oceans and marine cryosphere. As you well know, the coastal zone and land sea interface is the most densely populated area of Europe, and coastal communities are vulnerable to ocean and climate change impacts, from coastal erosion to sea level rise. Society urgently needs more comprehensive and integrated in situ data together with satellite data to deliver this. We need integrated and holistic information to serve coastal communities. We need interoperable data between the ocean, coast, inland waters to have a full source-to-sink approach. And we need to serve ocean and coastal health, nature restoration, coastal resilience, mitigation and adaptation, and water resilience. Next, the deep ocean. The deep sea includes all waters and seafloor below 200 meters of depth. This vast domain powers the global ocean and plays a key role in mitigating the impact of climate change. Member states increasingly require deep ocean data and knowledge to support their obligations to EU policy. Take the Nature Restoration Law, the Marine Strategy Framework Directive, and now the Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction High Seas Treaty. Yet the deep sea is arguably the most undersampled, knowledge-deficient area of our planet. More and better knowledge is required to identify and protect vulnerable marine ecosystems and to underpin the evidence base for the precautionary principle. We need data now from the surface to the deep sea floor, including the mesopelagic, and we need marine data to serve member states and other providers' needs for policy implementation. Next, we come to the polar oceans and the marine cryosphere. There is demonstrative scientific evidence of the unprecedented rate and scale of change in polar regions, which are at the forefront of climate change. There is real urgency to understand the consequences of such rapid changes to the polar ocean and the cryosphere on the global climate and ocean biodiversity, habitats, sea level rise, you name it. The EU and global society urgently need comprehensive, integrated and holistic observations, data and knowledge on the Earth's cryosphere and polar regions to accelerate our understanding and ability to track changes. Take sea ice, for example, which, despite many observations in other regions, we lack enough in these polar regions, and we cannot yet accurately forecast these changes. So this spans from the Arctic to the Antarctic, and we need data to support EU policies, including on climate neutrality, and to strengthen Europe's contribution to global climate and ocean assessments. So now we come to the roadmap. This roadmap shows the 3 steps from now to 2035 that the EMODnet proposes to need to fully scale its service. In this, the community recommends that in the short term, until 2028, when funding and budgets are largely already fixed, we use this time to consolidate and prepare to scale. What does this mean? It means we are launching more unified technical coordination. We will have more extended partnerships, and we will build the trust and transparency, getting ready to scale. We will also enhance our user engagement to really understand what users need to drive a fully user-driven service going forward, and we will operationalize this as well. Then from 2028, with the next multi-annual financial framework, we ask for a strengthened investment in EMODnet. This is absolutely essential to scale and integrate the service that we have, including the partnership. We need it to maximize interoperability with the European Digital Twin Ocean. We need it to have enhanced integration of member state policy data, and we need it to expand our service offer in all those 3 domains that you've just heard. Then from 2030, when we have already had extra investment to really scale, we can then deliver a transformative marine data service. So as I come to the closing, we come to the bottom line. So in the EMODnet Vision 2035, the community also proposes a funding outlook. We are very appreciative to all of the funding that the European Union has given to EMODnet to date, but now it's time to scale. We need urgently a step change in EMODnet's core funding to at least a double of the current investment, which effectively is going from 7 million to 14 million per year. And we need this across the full multi-annual financial framework cycle. In the meantime, before then, we also need additional funding to start being able to scale, to start developing the service evolution and the partnerships that are so critical, including at the global level. And we also need to transition to a more unified EMODnet governance model by 2030, and the EMODnet community are working on this. This also includes expanding the partnership, and this is what these investments and these funds are really for. We heard yesterday that EMODnet is not just a digital asset, but also a people's one, and expanding the partnership to be able to include all key actors is now vital. We want to do this in 2 waves, and as I've mentioned, renewing the focus on engagement and getting ready to scale so that by 2030 onwards we can really expand the partnership. And I leave you with this collective call to action. The network, the expertise and infrastructure are already there. And whilst EMODnet now needs a EMODnet needs commitment and investment to really scale up and deliver its full potential for the European Ocean Pact. Thanks to the Vision Drafting Group for all of the amazing work that you did together. Thanks to all of you who contributed to the public consultation. I hope you will take the vision back with you. You will own it, you will share it, and then let's make this vision a reality. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Mealy, and you should stay with me for the little bit of a surprise that's coming now, but just very briefly, in the interests of time, next steps in spreading the word, next steps in turning the vision into reality. We're going to put, I've got to stop saying that, put the meat on the bones. We're going to unpack that more in this last panel, but if there's one thing that is important for you as that kind of catalyst for doing it, what would it be?
Kat, it's what I said yesterday, it's the people. So the people around are really the catalyst. We have 133 partners now, and we can expand. But the partners we already have, you have a huge opportunity to really take this to your national authorities, your organizations, your networks, your partners, so that we can bring this message, we can really underpin that EMODnet is ready to scale, that EMODnet is ready and is already serving in many ways the ambitions of the Ocean Pact, but to deliver the full potential, we need this investment.
Okay, thank you very much. And I love the way, when I was there, see, step change, double. I love the alignment, step change, oh, we'll have a few more thousand. I love the word step change and double, but it is absolutely considerable, and rightly so, if it is to meet the needs, the demands, everything that we have heard over the course of these 2 days. Perhaps you should stay with me, because it's a collective effort. You are much more a part of this team than I, because we just wanted to take a moment, because we didn't want you to run off at the end, before this panel, to acknowledge that huge collective effort. So I think you should stay with me to do that. Shouldn't be me. This is so very much your baby. So we just wondered if people would stand, and we would give you copious amounts of applause after I've read out a few names in the room and asked you to stand, because it's good to have a moment to applaud. So first, we would like to thank the FVDG co-chairs, Adeline and Dick. So maybe you could just stand. We'll clap at the end. Okay, we won't clap at the end. Stay standing. You don't need to sit down. Stay standing. Stay standing. That was cute. You sort of went, and he just went, I'll just sit down now. But you should stay standing. I'm going to ask everybody to stand for one huge round of applause, because then you can hear who I'm calling. The Vision Drafting Group. Vision Drafting Group, are you in the room? You who drafted the vision? That's interesting. I had to say that in several ways for you to know who you are. Well done, stay standing. And then the immense effort from the Secretariat, the EMODnet Secretariat. Hold your applause. So Cara, where are you in the room for your dedicated support? Peter, for the vision design, are you in the room? Hello, I haven't met you yet. Hello. To Angeliki for communication and promotion and just being so nice. She's not in the room. Okay. To Connor, technical leadership. Where are you, Connor? Is Connor in the room? No, he's eating more brownies. Okay. The central portal technical team. Tim, Bart, Fred, Matteo. Oh, hello. Haven't met you either. Hello. Jan Bart, for all of the inputs and beyond, and your role on the VDG, including for the vision summary. And to Kate, for coordination of absolutely everybody. And now we can applaud. Well done. Thank you. Thank you so very much. Now you are allowed to take a seat. Now you are allowed to take a seat. And of course, we can do from seated a round of applause. Applause. I don't know what accent that was. Partners, associated partners, wider stakeholders here in Brussels, all of you online. We don't want you to think we don't see you. So we thank all of you for your input into this process and also for doing this for many of you alongside your day jobs. So one more round of applause for the wider community. Well done. Thank you very much. All right. Let us please get stuck into the last panel, so if we can pull up the name, EMODnet Service Evolution for the European Ocean Pact. We're going to hear from very diverse speakers, domain experts, representatives of European and global initiatives, why it's crucial that the service scales, that it expands its service office, and also, as we saw there from Kate, very clearly taking in, and that is why we've got specialists on the panel, oceans, coasts, this land-to-sea connection, polar regions, the deep sea, and achieve maximum interoperability, really as a regional node of the European digital twin ocean and also of the global ocean data ecosystem. So what do we need to do to make it happen? This is a very practical panel, again, as the others. What do you want to see? So if I might invite to come to the stage, and then we can say who you are in greater detail when you're here. Starting here, Dominique Durand, who is Senior Blue Economy Strategy Advisor and Founder CEO of COGEA. So welcome to you. Nicholas Pade, Executive Director of the European Marine Biological Research Centre. We have Maria Grigoratu, who is Executive Secretary of the European Polar Board. Alessandra Cacciari, thank you, Programme Officer at the European Commission DG DEFIS. We have Lennart Tieberhein, who is Director of the Science Support Department at the Flanders Marine Institute in Ostend. And finally, I will get out of the way, we should have Adam Ledbetter. We've talked about, you've been referred to so many times. Lead Manager, Decade Coordination Office for OTA Data Sharing, so the IOC of UNESCO, also based in Ostend in Belgium. So that is quite a breadth of expertise on this panel, which is brilliant because we are trying to kind of speak to, so to speak, all of those key elements of the vision document that we had there. So let me just turn. What did I not get to ask you that you might want to add, all of you? Just chip in. COGEA, just say a few words if you need to about your company or anything else that the audience might know, but I mean a few sentences. Your time starts now.
Okay.
Go for it.
Thank you. So now COGEA is a small SME based in Bergen, in Norway, working at the European level and just helping research institutions and businesses in their path toward the valorization of coastal areas through science and technology.
And you can speak at half the speed when you speak on the panel, but thank you very, very much.
I will try to do that. It's not what I'm
it's
best
not
at.
easy. It's so not easy. Not when I'm saying, in the interest of time. All right. Nicholas, over to you. European Marine Biological Research Centre. Please raise your hand in the room if you know all about this place. Ah, quand même. All right, then. You better just say a few words.
Well, I'm relieved that there are hands coming up, so that's very good news.
Just hold it here.
Yep. So EMBRC, we're a research infrastructure for everything that's related to marine biology and ecology, from innovation to fundamental research. We have 10 member states and about 80 marine stations from the Eastern Mediterranean all the way up to Tromsø, so we cover a very large breadth. We've started getting involved in observation about 5 years ago and really focusing on the biological aspects and really trying to enrich and standardize the biological data that's becoming available in observation.
Okay. Thank you very much. I have to push you all to hold. Why? Because it makes it easier for the audience online to hear you. Forgive me for being a pain in the backside with that. All right, so here we are, European Polar Board, major strategic priorities focus Arctic and Antarctic. What else do you need to add?
Yes, so we are a membership organization in Europe. We have 31 institutions, ministers, funding agents, national funding agents, logistic operators from 22 countries in Europe, EU and non-EU member states. And we're one of the few organizations that have this strong focus on both poles and represent the European polar research voice.
It's very cool, I have to say. Yeah, just to say we have this focus on both poles. And to you, Alessandro, what I left out of your profile from DG DEFIS is, of course, you are, important for this discussion, Copernicus expert.
Exactly. So I'm coming from DEFIS, but it's the Earth Observation Unit, and we are the manager of Copernicus. More interesting for here, Copernicus Marine, but Copernicus in general with all the space infrastructure and everything. And thanks a lot for having me here. Great to contribute.
Thank you. Lennart.
Yes, obviously we have quite a big role in EMODnet. Our government, and I really thank them for this, have a long-standing support for EMODnet, and for their strategic vision I'm really grateful. So what we do in VLIS with regards to EMODnet, we really support the central portal. We also make sure that the Secretariat can be present in our building in Ostende, in the Innovation Campus. But next to that, VLIS, Vlaanders Marine Institute, is a research institute. So we're not just working on the data component, we also conduct research. And we also have a policy department really making sure that we have the complete value chain from data collection towards the broader public and also policy. So therefore, I think it makes sense in this EMODnet arena to really have knowledge about all the aspects of collection towards publication of information and data.
And publication in a way that reaches the right people also in the right way, because everybody digests it. We talk about ingesting data. Everybody digests and uses that data differently. Adam, over to you. Why are you on this panel, and tell us more? Well, that sounded very rude. We know why you're on this panel. What I meant was in a good way. What are you bringing to the table? Yes.
Yeah, so one of the, the Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, it's organized around answering 10 challenges. And one of those challenges is to build a digital representation of the ocean. The Decade Coordination Office for Ocean Data Sharing then, we coordinate across the projects and programs in the Decade on data and information management. We try to implement the strategy to build that digital representation of the ocean, and we're also involved in training, capacity development around data and information management. EMODnet is a key partner for us because EMODnet is an implementing partner of the Decade, and so EMODnet is going to be key as we seek by 2030 to build that digital representation of the ocean.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to start at the sort of the higher level and look at what again what's coming on Thursday and Friday and what we saw in Kate's presentation. We're going to have a look at the European Digital Twin Ocean. We're going to also look at Copernicus and also this international stakeholder engagement, and then kind of go more into the domain experts. So hold your thoughts momentarily. I will start with you, Lennart, because also, of course, VLIS is coordinating the marine biology thematic, as you said, hosting the portal. Really, really key role, thus, in EMODnet's contribution to the European Digital Twin Ocean. In the light of that, any reflections on what this vision that you've read and you just heard from, and anything that you would want to underscore about why it's so important to strengthen the support for it over the next decade? Is there anything you felt wasn't said that you would say that's the clincher, why we have a real case to bring to the table?
What wasn't said?
Yeah, well, it was so comprehensive, but go for it. Maybe what resonated for you most in that and why it is so important.
Yeah, a lot of things were said already, but what I do think, I'm not going into details as Kate explained about the vision. What I do think is really relevant in the fact that it's a community effort. It's a lot of people that built up this document. And when we think of community, what's the definition of a community? It's a group of people that really strive for the same goal, for a common goal. And for us, that is, in this group, it's EMODnet. And I think that is really important. And if we think about communities, how can we strengthen them in the future? Thinking about the scaling of the infrastructure, we talked about it's the people. Strengthening communities you do by collaboration. And I think that's the first priority to handle, not to wait until 2028, when the resources hopefully come, but really starting now, increasing the collaborations we have, really using that momentum that we have now going towards 2028. On the other hand, you have collaboration, resources, we've mentioned it a couple of times, we keep on hammering on that nail. It's logic, no scaling without resources, simple as that. But on the other hand, as I said, we don't have to wait until 2028. The Commission cleverly put a lot of EMODnet branding words into the call specifics that we currently see. It's clever, but I also hope, in that perspective, that the institutes that are all around the table, that are EMODnet partners, are also using those resources to complement to this goal. Often we are involved institutes, not the same colleagues are around the table. And I do think that's really important to start not just by increasing the 130 partners to more partners, but also within the partnership, increasing within the institutes. Because some of our colleagues have not heard of EMODnet. That's possible. And we see silos in institutes not being able to deliver towards this common goal, towards EMODnet. I think that is something in the scaling that we really need to see. But I haven't answered your question on the why.
You haven't, but keep it. You're going to need to keep it beautifully telegraphic, but interesting. But really excellent that you made that point. That even within the partnerships themselves and those institutions, there needs to be more visibility. Resources, people across the board. Yeah, it was just anything else that particularly resonated, why it's so important to strengthen it. But just 30, 40 seconds, if I may ask.
Yeah, I want to refer to what Taco was saying yesterday with his cutlery in his hand. It's about reuse of data. So I can say a number of things why, but it's about, for me, it's about the reuse. And I wouldn't call it nowadays reuse, I would call it multi-use. Nowadays, we feel our service is more and more used. It's multi-use. We approach much more stakeholders in the game. And I think that is something we really need to see, the multi-use of the things, the revalorization of the effort that has already been done, making it worthwhile. And why? Yeah, because we want to have a fit for purpose service. We want to be part, we want to, as the Commissioner yesterday said in his opening statement, we need to be ambitious. Well, I do think we need to be ambitious. We need to make a service that is really fit for purpose for the Ocean Pact, but also for serving the digital twin of the ocean.
Thank you. And you've beautifully helped me segue to that next question, to the lady on your left. Let's just talk about that. We know this, EMODnet, Copernicus, they are really delivering this long-term infrastructure which is powering the European digital twin ocean. Why is it so important that what EMODnet offers can be more robust so that it can continue to serve the digital twin ocean and other societal applications?
Yeah. Thanks a lot for this question. Actually, it's very important for us to clarify this, that as you have seen in the presentation of Kate before, and you said Copernicus Marine and Copernicus and EMODnet are the two building blocks of the EU DTO. Copernicus and EMODnet are anyhow long-standing, collaborating also for delivering the Copernicus data. EMODnet is very important and basic. Then in this scaling up of EMODnet, as you have seen, for example, I'm thinking to the cryosphere or to the coastal application. We will have, for example, in the next MFF, new satellite mission, new products exactly on cryosphere and on coastal application. So the need for us in the big pictures of the EU DTO, where we want to have models for short-term prediction and long-term projection. We need the stability, the robustness, and the quality of the EMODnet data, not only for the calibration and validation of the satellite-based measurements, but also of the products from the Copernicus Marine and on the products of the EU DTO. And we cannot have it if we don't have a robust and reliable basic. We don't want to go into the gigolo, no? Garbage in, garbage out. Absolutely. We want to be reliable and robust in the end. So we need a robust and reliable start.
Thank you very much. So we're again keeping with this, EMODnet has its incredibly, useful tentacles in so many different domains and building, not that it needs it, but building this case for more funding, more strengthening. And that includes, with the international stakeholder community. So for you, again, just to emphasize why it's so important that this kind of regional data service is given the oxygen, the money, the everything else to expand and continue to plug into that global landscape.
So I think, just to put it in terms of what we're doing in the decade again, the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, the strapline is the science we need for the ocean we want. And the ocean that we want in the decade by 2030 has 7 outcomes. I'm not going to go into all of them, but 3 of them are particularly relevant for this audience. One is an accessible ocean, and that includes digitally accessible. Includes the data being available. One is a predicted ocean, so this value chain that we're talking about of data to the digital twin to create models and outputs of models. That predicted ocean, that forecasting capability is vital in the ocean that we want by 2030. And we also want to have an inspiring and engaging ocean by 2030. So the stories about the data, the stories that the data tells, the engagement that we heard with the private sector before and the stories to tell into the boardroom to get the private sector on board in sharing their data are vital. The stories we can tell to our school children, our students to inspire the next generation of ocean scientists and ocean data managers are vital as well. So as we look to build this digital representation of the ocean by 2030, as the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission builds its data architecture and data system for global ocean data exchange, we need a strong EMODnet. We need a strong EMODnet. Kate showed those national partners. We need those strong national partners resourced. We need a strong regional coordination, the community that Leonard talks about, as well as the technical standards at a regional level, so that they can continually feed into this global data discovery system that we're proposing, this global data access service that we're proposing, this global digital atlas that we're going to build that shows the benefits of the decade, but also answers some local studies for Europe, for Africa, for South America as well. So yeah, that strong national to regional to global is what we really, really need, and that's where EMODnet is so vital for a global position.
Thank you. And I know in a sense, I guess you would agree that in a way we are preaching to, we're not preaching, but let me use that phrase, preaching to the converted, but I'm tying together the fact that why are we embedding this so robustly in your heads? It goes back to the answer that Kate gave me to my question, how do we move forward? There is also the ask to the community, please go and speak at the national level to your member states, because this cannot be pushed forward. So in a way, we are presenting you here with some of the kinds of narratives which make such a robust case for why EMODnet is so vital and why it deserves this funding and more in order to scale up and do what needs to be done to have the ocean we want. So let us just go into these kind of different domains, and Kate had specified some of those, why we need to enhance observation and data and knowledge in those particular domains. And if I come to you, Dominique, the coast, the land, sea interface, where could those services be expanded, do you think?
So first, I would possibly define a little bit the land sea interface with a few words, but basically it's connecting inland waters to marine waters through rivers and estuaries. It means working along gradients, high variability, multiple pressures on the environment. And at the end, so it means a lot of challenges in terms of protection and restoration. A lot of challenges in terms of harmonization, because it's different communities working different domains, having different approach, different methods, even to measure the same variable. You could have discrepancies along this, from freshwater to salty or coastal waters. So a lot of different aspects to be tackled by scientists to ensure that the data that can be provided would be streamlined in repository as EMODnet also, and be able to be maximized and used and multiply used also in the future. It is also the place where a big part of the blue economy is supposed to take place or is taking place. So it goes on the multiple pressure aspect, but it goes also on the some difficulties, and I will refer to the European Ocean Pact. So there is two of the pillars, which is a restoration or conservation on the one side, and the sustainable blue economy on the other side, is particularly complicated in the coastal and land sea interface region because of the aspect I've been mentioning before. So it means a need of a lot of data. We need to change gear for this environment in terms of the observation. What we are doing, or what is done from a scientific point of view, but also by industry or by authorities through monitoring, is a good approach, and which is tackled by EMODnet in their visions. But we need more. We need more data to understand the processes, the complex processes which are happening there, to support decision making on the big investment to be doing there, or the measures to be actually applied for the conservation or the protection of the environment. So the sustainability world in this region is complicated, yes. But at the end, all the data has to be funneled into EMODnet, because there is a tremendous needs for that to support the policy and the decision making. Yeah.
I think you've been super clear there in underlining the multiple pressure. Just to pick up briefly, before I move to the next speaker, you just used the words, we need to change gear in terms of the observation. Then you use the word more data. Is it just about more data, or changing gear in, you also said a lot of harmonization is needed because there's very diverse actors. Just how would you flesh out change gear?
More data, yes, but it's also, when I think at present, mostly when we think the connections between our land to sea, we see a river runoff, quantity of water. We need to go the whole way with the compounds, nutrients, organic matter, sediments, everything's contaminants, of course. And EMODnet has to be ready, and I think you are almost ready to get all this data in, or at least to have good interoperability aspect to link also the different data services. So it's more data, but it's also harmonization, and it is some aspect which is not addressed at the time being. And defragmentation, I think, would be a key word, because different communities working differently. There is defragmentation and governance. And there is an ongoing project addressing that, and Seascape and EMODnet is part of that, that we hope will be able to provide a strategic a common strategy on the observation of this area and environment in the future. So.
Thank you. Well, you've set the scene for me to just turn, if I may. I'm not going to pester you for questions, because I would think you'll shoot your hands up anyway, even before I ask in this room. So, can I ask you just to plug into a word cloud question, to answer a word cloud question, particularly that speaks to this, the coastal service. What should EMODnet's coastal service offer look like? And maybe just for you, if you have anything to comment on what we shall see in a moment on screen, we will wait for people to type in what is most important for you for that coastal service offer to really reach its full potential. Is it harmonization? Is it money? Is it decomplexifying the complex? What is it there? Citizen science. Okay, so we just let a few more come in. And then maybe you can do a quick comment before I will come to Nicholas and we look at another domain area. All right?
I can make a comment.
Yeah,
if you
make
may.
a comment. Go for it.
I thought about talking about that, but because of the time, I decided not to go through that. So I'm very happy that it's coming now. So first, I will not talk about citizen science, but participative science, including citizens, but also businesses and actors. So we hear yesterday fishermen, we hear this morning marinas. So there is a lot of actors which are also professional of the maritime domain that have something to contribute.
Yeah.
So, but certainly, in the coastal zone and at the land interface, that's where participative science makes sense and can really have a big impact because people are there, are living there, basically. So this is I really think that a breakthrough could appear through empowering citizens and people for maximizing also and covering a lot of gaps in terms of observation in the coastal zone, and then linking to this changing gear that I was mentioning before.
Thank you very much. But with that comes also the need, of course, to make sure that that data, is quality, that it's harmonized. What does it look like? How is it collected? How does it serve? I heard yesterday on one of the panels in here that it's nice if people, if you want to engage a community, it's good to have a feedback loop so they know what they're contributing to. That's also really helpful to spike interest. Okay, thank you very much. Let me move straight on to Nicholas. Deep Sea Ocean, planets inner space. We heard, already there clearly from Kate why it's so important that we are able to expand and ramp up observations in that area, but would you be able to give us some more concrete examples, so we can visualize why it's so important?
Yeah, thank you for the question. You've really asked me a question to address about 80% of the planet. So we talk about the water below 200 meters, so that goes from 200 to 11,000 in the deepest part. So it's not one system, it's multiple systems that goes between depth and depths. And then there's, of course, the seafloor in itself. There are specialized habitats on the seafloor, like the black smokers, for example.
Like?
So it's black smokers. So these are hot water vents on the seafloor that provides a lot of very rich minerals, a lot of growth comes out of it, a lot of nutrients come out of it. This supports some very complex ecosystems, also that are entirely chemical-based rather than light-based. So these are extremely interesting systems. The point really is that this is a very, very diverse system. And we heard a little bit before in the panel about the challenges of working in the marine environment. The deeper we go, the more challenging that becomes, whether it's 1,000, 2,000, 6,000, 8,000. And so our capabilities there are also quite limited. But we are really sitting in a very data deficient and a very poorly understood system the further we go down. There's a very large growing interest in exploiting the deep sea, also for minerals. And so to be able to do that, we need to understand the impacts. And there's two main examples I think we can raise. First of all, from the biological perspective, there's a very poor understanding of species distribution, linkages, ecosystem compositions. So who's there, what are they doing, and how are they linked? It's not that long ago that we thought that the deep sea was quite empty, that animals didn't really move that far, and now we know that it's teeming with life, there's great interconnectivity, but we don't understand the processes very well. What happens when we impact one system? What are the repercussions from the rest of the deep sea? But how does that feed into the rest of the system? Nothing is separate from each other. Everything is interlinked. From a physical perspective, there's an awful lot of very deep sea currents. They're important in nutrient cycles, but they also play a huge role in distributing pollution. What's the impact there? Where do they go? How do they work? So there's some huge knowledge gaps where we know there are questions, but we don't know the answers. But a lot of these issues that we see in the deep sea, I would say, are general questions that we have around biodiversity and the general biological living component of the sea. We understand quite a bit, but I'm not sure people really appreciate how little we actually understand. We talk a lot about the endpoint of digital twins and so on. We can only twin and model what we understand, or we will be very simplified and potentially make poor conclusions. If we want to be able to model these things, we need an intricate understanding of them to reproduce them adequately.
And what's the main, again, this is an easy, simplistic question. If you can wave a magic wand to boost that greater understanding, is it about the money? Is it about the technology? Is it about better cooperation between governments at state level? What is it to drive that forward? And to also, I was thinking to myself, gosh, isn't that a chance to do it in the right way? Because it remains a mystery still to be explored. What do we need at hand to be able to demystify?
Well, all of the above. I mean, there's the question of funding. It's extremely expensive to do. There's only so many places we do it. The ocean is enormous, so it's a gigantic challenge. There are technological challenges as well. The amount of equipment we have that's capable below 6,000 meters is measured in half a dozen, maybe a dozen around the planet. One stops working and it stops research programs for years. So technological investment, of course, is a huge point about money, but that's always a point in observation. If you want to have these long-term programs, they need to have a horizon that goes beyond a year or two of project funding. Otherwise, we can't plan. That leads to coordination between those few actors that are very active in the deep sea. The advantages of smaller communities is that very often they do cooperate very well.
Yeah, they're quite agile.
Yes.
They can be quite agile.
And when we come then back to the data, that's a great place to standardize and harmonize and so on. So the places are there. But as usual, we do have technological, we do have funding challenges that need to be overcome.
I thought of two people when he was answering. The first was David Attenborough. I thought, does David Attenborough know about EMODnet? Sorry? Oh, yeah? Okay, fabulous. That was number one. And then number two, I thought about, God damn it, Elon Musk, okay, he was kicked out by Trump. He needs another project. Get him from up there to go down there. Come on. You can do it, Nicholas.
Well, I would be more than happy to have lunch with him to try and encourage him, but this is a conversation we've had on, over coffee and so on. I mean, there are individuals in this world that could actually fund entire programs for decades from their own wealth.
Yes.
I'll leave it at that and let people
You
judge.
should leave that there, because otherwise we could just completely go off topic and discuss that until the end of the day, assuredly. Can we do the same thing? Can I just check in with a poll, if I may, just to see, and just for a quick flashpoint feedback from you, what do you think the deep ocean service offer? I mean, you're so right, so few actors means, of course, at this stage, you've got this desire to share, haven't you? You're just so grateful when there's somebody else in the same domain that's working. What are you doing? What can we... so while it remains small and agile, there is that willingness. Okay. Yes.
Well, I'm quite happy to see that we don't have citizen science coming up here, but...
Yeah.
In terms of leaving Elon Musk down there, that could actually answer to that question. I don't know how long he'd be able to operate for, but...
I feel he's part cyborg. I think he could. I think we'd be surprised. Okay. Opportunity to learn, absolutely. Opportunity to learn, but dark. All right. Leave music down there. Do you think the wealth of creatures down there would like that? How do you know that they're not already having their own discos and parties down there? You have no idea. All right, anything that you would cover? Just one thing? Rapidos?
Well, I mean, we have the accessible data, of course, and I think there's always the issue of trying to bring in smaller communities and make them realize that they are catered for and represented by these databases, and this is a place that they can submit. Very often, though, for these more niche topics, there are specific needs required. Maybe it's around metadata or data types and so on. And so there, I think it's important that we also really engage, not just on the user side of the people who want to take the data, but the people that provide the data, what their needs are, and make sure that they are actually able to provide the entirety of the data into the system and that they're properly catered for. Yeah. If they're not, they'll go elsewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. No, very good point. And I also like this comment here, transparency of what we don't know. That's also, that for me, is an excellent point amongst many useful. Yeah, very, very funny. Well, who said get David Attenborough up? All right, so over to Maria. Sorry, Maria, you've been incredibly patient. We're turning to the polar regions to hear that perspective. And of course, the essential value of the polar ocean marine cryosphere, just for global climate, for society at large, and maybe a couple of areas again, where should EMODnet be focusing in order to better service that, better, improve its offer for that particular domain?
Yes, well, first I will start a little bit with a summary of why Europe needs to care about the polar regions. They might seem very distant, especially Antarctica. But we need to remember that the polar regions, both the Arctic and Antarctic, are the ground zero for the biodiversity ocean-climate nexus. And they have been, and they are planetary regulators. So what that means in practice, because of these systems, of these polar systems, Europe has this mild climate compared to its latitude. Also, they affect a lot the global ocean circulation. That affects the weather, so the short term, but also the climate, the long-term climate of Europe. And this is not only how warm or cold the north or the south will be, it's about everyday life. When it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to security, to land use, how it's going to be our agriculture in the future. We already see seasonality changing, and that affects directly how we understand and deal with the resources that we can get for our societies to thrive. That also means how polar regions affect the species migration. Again, links with food, with economy, with well-being, with cultural elements of our countries in Europe, and how these are changing because of changes in polar regions due to climate change. So now that the poles are getting warmer, we know that Europe is getting warmer. Some areas, they could be colder, and we also become wetter. So first of all, this is why Europe should care about the polar regions. Then, as well, we have the sea level rise. Greenland and Antarctica are the two major contributors of sea level rise in Europe. Right. It's not only Greenland because it's closer to us, it's Antarctica, and Antarctica it's more important because of, if you want to think how Antarctica impacts the sea level rise in Europe, you need to consider a mattress, and at the end of it, think a very heavy item. This is Antarctica now with all the ice on its land. You can imagine that this heavy item creates a movement to the mattress downwards close to it. So the water piles up there. But when Antarctica becomes lighter because of all the melting of the fresh water that it has, then it shifts the balance on the mattress. And all the water that was there in Antarctica then moves up to the other areas of the mattress, and the mattress is the planet. So this is how Antarctica impacts the sea level rise in all the European seas. And hence, studying and having science, European science in both poles, it's not just an academic hobby. It's really important to understand the natural laws and how Europe is part of these planetary connections. And this is where EMODnet can be a real asset, not only for Europe, but for the globe. I like to see EMODnet and the digital twins of the ocean as public assets of knowledge, where we have long-term national and EU investments on producing knowledge paid by tax money to help us better understand the laws of nature and how we thrive within in a sustainable way. So having EMODnet collecting and giving access to all this rich data and knowledge that Europe produces at the national programs and with the EU programs that are very important for the international cooperation and high-level questions. This is where we become better to understand and predict and act on changes that already happened, driven by the rapid changes that happened in the poles. So 2 priorities for EMODnet.
Yeah.
Yes, one, I think, very important to make sure that EMODnet has near real data from polar regions, and also have a better connection and coordination with the polar research community in all value chains. This means observation, modeling, data, research infrastructures, and how you use them to produce the best knowledge we can.
Thank you very much. And I would say what I was thinking when you were explaining, with the mattress analogy and the fact that we are impacted not just by what is happening in Greenland, but also the Antarctic, is I was just thinking, of course, that there is in the public consciousness as well. This is one of the areas where they don't perhaps understand quite why, but it is there, and it should be capitalized upon, that this is one of areas in all of these discussions, one of the domains that if you sat a random 30 people down, they're not going to be surprised to find out why it is important, I think. There is that public consciousness. Can we just take a poll? And again, just the last time we look for what the opinion is of the audience on this, how you think that offer, particularly polar ocean and marine cryosphere, should look like. What needs to be taken into account? Where is the argumentation for that to be more robust, to be strengthened, and how and in what way? Okay, knowledge, which is partly what you have just said yourself.
Here I would like to make a comment about the indigenous knowledge.
Please do.
It should be very important for EMODnet to find a way to connect with indigenous data, accepting and acknowledging that they have the right on their data and how they use them. It's very important. And they, especially for the Arctic, they give this deep knowledge of history and more holistic understanding of ecosystems that we can learn a lot about.
Yeah. And just before I move on, how do you propose that could happen? To be able to do that? This knowledge, you've seen it more than once on here, those who are living there, those who are on the ground, that reach out, how do you propose, through which mechanisms? Just very briefly. Yeah.
I think it's already happening. Yesterday we brought an example how EMODnet is working closely with the Southern Ocean Observing System.
Yeah.
We just need more cooperation, dialogue, and agreements that we respect them and actually moving forward to their implementation.
Yeah. Adam, did you want to please come in? Yeah.
Just wanted to say as well that on the in the UN Ocean Decade, this is something that we're addressing as well, and there is a framework for engagement with indigenous communities, and I think maybe that's one area where the Decade and EMODnet can work together as well. As EMODnet expands into this area, we can use the Decade frameworks that exist to make it happen as in the right kinds of ways and the respectful kinds of ways as well.
Thank you very much. So what I'll check in. Any burning question, comment, experience to share from the floor? Yay! It's you. Yes, you may. Here is the microphone coming behind you.
Thank you, Katrina.
Please stand, because everyone can see you in the room then.
So for those who were not there yesterday, I'm Nicolas Segebart from DG Research and Innovation. And I wanted to pick up on the very first intervention from Leonard, which I think is absolutely fundamental. If EMODnet is to achieve its vision, it cannot rely on a possible increase of the funding through the EMODnet program. Being part of EMODnet is not only be part of a network, it really should be a commitment to align the internal procedures, to align the internal workflows with regard to the vision of EMODnet. So it should be a commitment for all the NODCs, from all the research institutions, to make sure that their work aligns with the vision of EMODnet and contribute to it. It cannot only be 7 million euro through public procurements from the Commission. It must be a global commitment from all the members of EMODnet. And I think that is absolutely essential for the vision of EMODnet, but also for our ocean observing initiative. So I just wanted to reiterate that. Thank you, Leonard, for making the point.
And so you should. Thank you very much. Okay, can we move on? We've got a last round, but I'm going to ask you such a big favour because I would really like to respect the time, and we have a last speaker from the European Commission, and it's so important to hear from you, Delilah. So if we can keep it nice and punchy, like brain box bingo, as I call it, I just want to touch back. If you can keep it literally to 90 seconds, bish, bash, bosh, so we go, great. That would be wonderful. We are just going to plug into what, EMODnet and the wider community can do to really deliver this expanded, this scaled up service by 2035. So I'm just randomly, I'll come back to you, Maria, anything else that you think EMODnet, what needs to happen for it to expand its offering, particularly in the domain in which you specialise? We've also got an ongoing decade of action for cryospheric sciences, an international polar year. Just in 90 seconds, what needs to happen for it to be able to do that and within that wider context?
Yes, I think EMODnet should position itself as the key data center at the International Polar Year and the UN Cryosphere Decade. For this to happen, as I said before, it's really important to build strong partnerships with the polar community. Already, this is happening. We just need to enhance that, and with indigenous communities, and work with the polar communities towards more harmonized data and real-time, almost real-time data.
Okay. Thank you very much. You have set the bar high. Nicholas, same question to you. Partnerships, other activities that it can, the service can really strengthen to expand its offer for marine biodiversity from the coast to the deep ocean. What would be your other asks? What could you see happening to improve that?
So we've heard about the UN Decade of Ocean. So this has been a really important platform for us for developing DNA-based observation. So the link to international communities is super important. And so I think there's a central role for EMODnet that is really adding a value to the data providers. It's to make sure that we submit in one place and the data gets distributed everywhere according to the international standards so that they implement those international standards. So in the same logic, what I think is important is that EMODnet also doesn't just think about the users, but also the data providers. We need to know where the data is going, how it's being used, what services they're being used in, and so on. We've just heard about the expense of generating data. We need to justify that. If we're not able to say it's downloaded this many times, it contributes to IPBS, it's in this digital twin model, our member states won't continue to fund it. Yeah. So I think there's a really important added value from organizations like EMODnet to empower us with that knowledge so we know how the data is being used, tracking the data through the system, and giving us that knowledge back is an important part of that ecosystem as well.
Absolutely, and that again draws upon capacity to be able to package and give that feedback. Excellent point. And also I think it just spoke to what we heard earlier in the last panel about the importance of getting these stories. What does it look like? How is that data used, and what does it look like at its end point? Those are so important. Thank you. So going back to the very specific regions that you spoke about, these inland waterways, their connection with the wider ocean, this land-sea interface. Anything else that is needed for this step change? And you called it source to sink approach to the data and knowledge provision.
If you may, I will make a bit of a different point that is very relevant for the land-sea interface, but not only. A big part of the data coming in EMODnet has been acquired through science in a very specific way. So it means through observation strategy, sampling strategy to observe a process, to observe the environment in a certain way. When the data acquired that can be multi-variable, multi-purpose, has been acquired in this way. And when it comes into databases, this added value of how it has been observed to make consistency and value in the way different variables have been observed is partly lost.
Okay.
And so we are losing something on the way. And until now, I would say it was fine. So the data was If we think using the data for policy or for constraining models and so on, it's okay. But now we have two other momentum that when I think this aspect is becoming an issue if it is not tackled, and is one, data science. So making science, making new knowledge based on existing data. And EMODnet is an enabler of that, and it will be a very big enabler of that. But if we consider only the variables independently through a database and not keeping the information on and the added value of how the thing has been acquired as data set, so then we are losing a part of the capacity of the scientific community to do data science. So that is my first point. My second point is related to the digital twin, especially for the artificial intelligence part of it. Because to train an AI model, you can do that with data that you collect, but if you have the additional information on the data set and how it has been acquired, you are adding an information into your artificial intelligence model for the training, for the validation, for the optimization, for the operation. So I would really advocate for this aspect to try to be tackled somehow through metadata, through other things, but actually to have this additional information available for data science and digital twins.
Thank you for that. Okay, Adam, again, two priority actions that EMODnet could really focus on to support and advance ocean data sharing. Anyone else that EMODnet should think about partnering with for that? Any initiatives or stakeholders?
Yeah. So I think for me, I'm just going to echo things that have already been said. I think the way that we use the internet, the way that we use the web is changing. We're used to search engines getting recommendations for results, and now we are moving towards receiving answers to questions. And I think the point that Dominique is making about trust in the data is going to be more and more important, and I would love EMODnet to partner with us as we create a global data exchange for the ocean to help us create models for how we can trust data that we are seeing in that global data exchange, because it's going to be more and more important as we interact with the internet and the web in different ways to how we're used to. The other area that I think is really important for us as we look towards 2030 and the end of the decade is to inspire people. And I would love to use the relationship we have with EMODnet to inspire people nationally, as Nicola is saying, to the vision of EMODnet and to the decade, and to share the data that we need to create the digital representation of the ocean. But also, as this Nicola was saying, to explain the value of what we're doing and to be able to quantify the value of the data sharing so that we can inspire more data sharing, more data, better data to create better products for people to use at the end of the day. So I think trust and helping the global system to understand how we trust the data and inspiring better use and more interaction with the data.
Thank you. And part of that trust, as you said, is we're losing that a little bit. How has the data been observed? How has it been acquired? That is part of building that trust. Alessandro, just a last question to each of you. Coming to Alessandro, again, how can the EU Marine Data Services maximize their contribution to all of these different initiatives that we have spoken about, and assets, European Ocean Pact, Ocean Observation Initiative, European Digital Twin Ocean? Anything that didn't get said?
Yeah, well, actually, I think the sequence that you were saying of these three elements is also critical to start with my answer. So the Ocean Pact, 6 priorities, setting the global framework of the consistent framework. Then we have the Ocean Observation Initiative. We want to improve the efficiency and the capacity of the European Ocean Observing System to deliver the necessary data, European and global level, for operational services. And we have at the core of it, the DTO. It's the operational core of all the thing. What can we do for serve all this? I mean, we have to remember that we, as Europe, we own a state-of-the-art observation asset, EMODnet, Copernicus. So we need coordinated and integrated approach for this. We are working toward this, and we need this to make a more efficient and coherent system, and ultimately this will lead to maintain and boost European global leadership in this domain.
Thank you very much. And I mean, coordination and collaboration, that's always a question of capacity, energy capacity, brain capacity, willingness, reaching out, you know.
Community.
Community, and all of these things, it's almost sometimes, the coordination and the collaboration is both part of your daily work, but it's also sometimes in addition and alongside, because there is so much demand, thinking about getting outside silos, thinking about where you can connect, thinking about where the synergies are. That also takes a whole other part of your brain and time to make sure it happens. Lennart, again, what does the partnership need to secure and scale its marine data service into the future? Maybe something that hasn't been said, or maybe everything's been said, and the thing that is most important to you, or you feel most important for this community to take away, if they are to also become multipliers at national level.
Well, one of the things that it has been said, but is the focus on leadership at many levels. So yesterday we heard about the political will. We need political actions in order that our community can work further. We need leadership at the Commission to take the right decisions, put the resources where they need to be. We need leadership in our community. We have the experts. They don't always take the leadership role in the framework of EMODnet, but they can. And inspiring, I think I really agree with that. We need leadership on an inspiring way as well. We need to incentivize our community really to move towards EMODnet as a global leader in our global information system. I think that is something that we all need to strive for. We have the capacity, we just need to do it. And sometimes that needs leadership to put the people on the spot and to really go for it. It goes hand in hand with ambition.
Thank you. Excellent comment, excellent articulation of comment. One little sneaky question before I close is, when you talk about political will, and it came up in one of the first word clouds, do you think sometimes we've spoken about, obviously, where things are a win-win, show why it matters, where the data's going, why it matters to industry, why it matters to coastal communities, why it matters to fishermen, who are also providers of the data, but users and beneficiaries of the data. Do you think there is ever a case to say what is at stake if we don't see how important this is and a service like this? Or do you think we live in a world now where there's just too much fear and screaming around, you know, this as a whole and protection of our climate, of the environment, of biodiversity, and saying this is at stake is not an argument that is going to be at all helpful anymore? I'm just curious on your opinion there.
Yeah, it's a difficult question. I, in fact, have not much an answer to that.
That's okay, that's an answer in itself. Anything from you, from an international perspective?
I was just thinking, actually, the way I was thinking about answering that was, we've seen for public data, public marine data, value chains that have been created by OECD. We've seen cost-benefit analyses that are over 10, often 10 benefit to 1 cost. And actually, then if you take out the infrastructure, the data infrastructure, you could say, well, actually, that 10 times of value, that 10 times of benefit is at risk by removing it. And so whatever that translates to into euros becomes at risk by removing it. And so there are, I think to answer your question that you asked earlier that I didn't answer, maybe partnering with OECD to understand like some of these economic benefits that EMODnet is bringing to Europe would be a really good partnership in terms of communicating that value and maybe what is at risk by removing it.
Thank you. I will close with your blessing. I will close with the blessing of the audience, because I want to make some space for our last speaker and some thanks at the end, and then of course you get lunch, all right? But I guess you're still digesting brownies, so I will prevail upon you for a few more seconds of your time for these twilight moments. First of all, could you give very warm applause to these wonderful speakers? Thank you very much. Thank you for your solid and concise and to-the-point interventions. You're allowed to take a breather off stage now. That is, you have earned the right. And now it's my pleasure to invite to come to the floor from the European Commission, the Director for Maritime Policy and the Blue Economy at DG Mare, Delilah Khudhairy. So, very warm welcome to you. You've got nowhere to put that. You're right. Okay.
I will always find a way, don't worry. Well, I want to congratulate the 2 sessions of panelists earlier on. Fantastic and very insightful, actually. A lot of food for thought also got me going, thinking, but also yourself for the moderation. I'm almost fearful of your on-the-spot questions, putting everybody on the spot, but it was brilliant. So, good afternoon, dear partners, guests, data providers, and colleagues. I am really happy to be here once again with you in this year's EMODnet conference, but also to bring this 4th edition to a close. I was here last year. The energy was really high, but I see that the community here is so strong that no matter what strikes or challenges are put in your way, you come, and that's very important. And I would say even higher than last year, but also the conversations, I think, have gone also to another level, and probably because of all the developments that have taken place, so I've found them very insightful to take forward. So you know very well that we are now in the EU Marine Knowledge Week, looking around, reflecting also on the latest policy developments, and they are key, and a lot of them are focusing on the ocean, and many of the discussions that you had this morning, and probably yesterday as well. And it's clear from those policy developments, you see that at the heart of that, knowledge is beating stronger than ever, even on the political landscape. And once again, we have used this conference, the opportunity, really well. I see exactly, for the term, why EMODnet is the essential Marine Institute data service of the European Ocean Pact. And I'd like to add to that, because it's not in my speaking points, which I took away, EMODnet, the global gateway to data. I think that is a key thing that we need to continue with that work. We have gathered here as a community of more than 133 partner organizations from 33 countries, so a wealth of intelligence, and we really here are at a pivotal moment. Commissioner Cadiz said that yesterday, and he did mean it with conviction. We had the launch of the European Ocean Pact, as you know, earlier this year, and we have a strong momentum also that built after that. It was presented by President von der Leyen at the UN Ocean Conference in Nice, where she also clearly showed that the demands on marine knowledge are high and will continue to rise. We are no longer just observing the ocean. We are actively managing a complex blue economy. We heard blue economy several times discussed by the panelists. We're also, importantly, protecting the health of our ocean, and that means protecting biodiversity under legislation like the Nature Restoration Law. But importantly, we're fighting climate change. But we're not just fighting climate change. We're also looking at the climate planet nexus, because that's so important. It is why we are also here today, and that is really key that we need to protect. And to do this, we do need evidence. We need more and better institute data. And EMODnet is critical in optimizing and maximizing this impact of Europe's ocean observation capacity. It integrates, as we heard, diverse data streams, indigenous knowledge now, I really like that, from autonomous platforms to citizen science, and to create a unified European knowledge base. This serves as an indispensable institute data-to-knowledge hub for the EU Ocean Observation Initiative. Actually, it'll be a critical aspect of that initiative. And in a better governed ocean observation system, in which we envisage under the Ocean Observation Initiative, EMODnet is the critical link between observation and actionable, relevant knowledge, one of the key deliverables of the European Ocean Pact. Now, we've heard extensively today, yesterday, but we will continue to hear that, never enough, that how EMODnet is powering this evidence base. So, whether it's supporting the Marine Strategy Framework Directive or the Maritime Spatial Planning Directive, or forthcoming obligations under incoming recently adopted legislation, like, for example, the Nature Restoration Regulation. EMODnet provides the trusted data that turns policy ambitions into reality, and trust is the word that we kept on hearing and are hearing this morning. So as we close this conference, we open the door to the Digital Ocean Forum, and there's a lot of excitement that normally spreads around and extends around the digital twin ocean. High-tech modeling we heard earlier. We also heard about artificial intelligence, but also the what-if scenarios. But we also heard that a twin is only as good as its DNA. And EMODnet, alongside Copernicus Marine, provide that essential DNA. And through the Ocean Observation Initiative, we also plan to work on a better coordination of these cornerstone services, marine knowledge. Coordination is a key word here. And as the world is changing and global challenges increase around us, we need to build and increase our autonomy on the robust foundation of our services. And the future is certainly bringing an opening of the EMODnet service towards the global landscape. EMODnet is the in-situ backbone of the European digital twin ocean. So all the work you're doing, harmonizing this fragmented data that's scattered around in different places, will allow the DTO to provide sector-specific and geographically explicit relevant applications. And as we move into the Digital Ocean Forum tomorrow, we're going to carry that clear message. Yes, virtual ocean relies heavily on the hard work done, but it relies on the hard work done in the real ocean by this community present here. And this brings me to a significant outcome of this conference, the launch of the EMODnet Vision 2035, as Kate went into detail talking about it. We have received your call, collective call to action. I personally have read the summary. Thank you, Kate, for also giving me a hard copy of that. And I want to tell you is that we hear you. We hear you. We hear also your addresses to the calls for evidence. There are a number of calls of evidence, and I open a parenthesis here, that you should need to pay attention to. We have the one coming up for the Ocean Observation Initiative. We have one coming up for the Ocean Research and Innovation Strategy. We have the one that's coming up for the Ocean Act, and we will also have the one that will come up for the coastal communities and islands. All of these rely on evidence and data, so please pay attention and respond. So the vision set by Kate gives a very clear phased roadmap, consolidating achievements by 27, scaling integration by 2030, and transforming into a fully unified, fully operational service by 2035. There are gaps, and they are acknowledged. You have identified them very clearly. We see the need that we need to better capture the coastal and land sea interface. This was picked up also by the panelists, including with a potential service in EMODnet towards that. And the coastal communities and islands are very important, in Europe especially, not only because of the population concentration, but also because they are exposed to all kinds of vulnerabilities, be it with their social, economic, and also environmental. So it is very important to enhance their resilience. And so data is very key to also understand and to develop the solutions for those. So we recognize the urgency of lighting up the deep ocean data landscape. And the critical importance, as we heard, of the polar regions and the marine cryosphere in the face of climate change is indeed undoubtable and very relevant to the EU Arctic policy. So we also recognize the resource limitations. That's very clear, very important to address. And we clearly also see the mindset spelt out by Kate. In order to have this for a fully resilient infrastructure, this requires strengthened, targeted, I would say, investment. So today, I cannot make promises on behalf of the Commission, but what I can confirm is that we're fully committed, especially at MARE, to look at the long-term sustainability of EMODnet. Long-term sustainability is an important keyword. Can't go from one decade or another without having that also in mind. And we view this as one of the most cost-effective public investments in our portfolio of actions, and we are exploring to see how the opportunities will be in the next multi-annual financial framework, how we could support this evolution, Kate, that you spelt out. By 2035, your vision for EMODnet is to be the world-leading regional hub for in-situ marine knowledge. This is ambitious, and it's an ambition that matches also and contributes to our own European Union aspirations, a Europe that is competitive, prosperous, and resilient. So, as you leave Brussels or this room, and you move on to the Digital Ocean Forum, I think everybody here can take pride in what you have built together. You have convincingly managed to show the transformation of ocean observation into quality marine in-situ data, very importantly, and into a common public good. So, as we move forward now to the next decade, and hopefully also beyond that, let us consolidate together, and I emphasize that together. Let us scale together, and let us transform together. And I'd like to echo a sentiment that I shared last year that probably, hopefully reflects that. Much of what was said this morning and a little bit beyond. EMODnet is not just about data that lives in service or portals, even if they're impressive and important at that point. It lives, very importantly, in this network, in this community that you have been building over many years. It lives in the hydrographic offices, in the geological surveys, the research institutions, the national oceanographic data centers, and the biological stations that create in our community. It lives in the people that work tirelessly with enthusiasm and energy to ensure that a measurement taken in the Baltic Sea can be understood by a policymaker in Brussels and used, or a scientist in the Mediterranean. So in many ways, EMODnet encompasses the power of the European Union, the power of working together for the public common good. So I'd like to thank you on behalf of also Mare, my colleagues. We're very much looking forward to, and of course, DGRTD, and also DEFIS, and the extensive family of the Commission services who are all members and of the European Ocean Pact itself. We very much look forward to working with you together in order to continue to make EMODnet the resilient European global gateway to data, and also EMODnet as the integrator of community, partnership, data, and cross-cutting enablers. So thank you once again for making this very successful edition, and very much looking forward to the future together, but also your contributions to all the exciting strategies that will have come up, which provide the linkages, or rather EMODnet is the linkages between those different strategies in terms of the data and knowledge that are required to ensure that they are effectively implemented. So thanks very much, and thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you so much for speaking with real warmth and passion. That's what you want at the end of an event, not just words coming to you. So thank you. I really feel your passion for it and your recognition of the community. So let me just ask, I'm just going to do a few words of thanks. That's my job as the moderator, and ask you to do one last poll. If I could prevail upon your thumbs, that would be wonderful. We can do just a last poll to see how you leave at the end of today. Is it mostly with a lot of pride because this is such an incredible network? You think, brilliant, I'm part of this. Do you think, right, I've seen that vision, I need to do my bit in helping EMODnet evolve? Did you? Do you go away with a new partner, not life partner, not love partner? If you have, that would be interesting. Never asked that question, but somebody new partnership. Better informed, have you learned stuff? Or 75 kilograms heavier because of all of the stuff that's been put out there in every break that's very hard to stay away from? So what is your biggest feeling as you leave? I think that's great that those two come up top. I hope you're happy with that as a That's good, right? That those two. Pride, that's super important because you're not going to get anyone to help it evolve if we don't have that. And then motivated and inspired to help it move on. I thank you very much, first of all, because I've never done an event that focuses so much exclusively on data. Data, of course, comes up in every sector I moderate, the importance thereof of sharing it, but the extent to actually talk and bring colour and life to that data, as you say, from the front end, how and where it's collected to where it actually ends up, what that looks like. That's quite a thing. So thank you. And also I thank the speakers because often, you know, if you get an answer, how do you want something to change? What would you like to see? How can this contribute? You will get something like better collaboration, more funding, more, all of those things I couldn't agree more with. But I do commend the panelists for really trying to come back with very, very pointed answers in terms of what you would like to see and how you can contribute, because that cannot but help you evolve. And all of that will come in, it's important to say, a report, a conference report, and the slides will also be available, obviously. So I look at you, the audience online, that's also for you to access. Finally, the thanks. European Commission DG Mare. Zoe, you are a really good, you and your colleagues, Antonio, you're a really good face of the Commission for this. I really would say you are very vibrant and energetic, and I think you need that. If you're asking a community as the European Commission, you have to be able to put that energy out there. So thank you, and to all of your colleagues at DG Mare, all the speakers and panelists. I have to do a lot of listening as a moderator, hell of a lot of listening, and it's always good to listen to very smart, clever, passionate people. So thank you for that. I also just need to thank the co-chairs, the rapporteurs and the reporters to plenary. You did splendid jobs. Oh my goodness, can we just, for behind the scenes, Tiziana and Yvette from gopa.com. This was a hell of an event to put together. Don't know where they are. Don't know where they are in the room, but I just, as you well know, I mean, you had the kerfuffle to get here with a strike, what they've been doing to make sure this all runs, and also a big thank you to the technical team, because you have to be on the ball, and there's a shed load of content to listen to and still remain on the ball. So huge thanks to you. Finally, to our beautiful ninja-like photographers and those who are shooting videos behind the scenes. And of course, a huge thanks again to the EMODnet Secretariat, Angeliki, because I don't think you were in the room the last time. So we were ready to wait for you to stand and cheer. You'd buggered off, so I don't know. Angeliki and Cara and Kate. And the lovely Kate, thank you so very much. And yeah, you should stand. You're such a delightful person, such a delightful speaker. I mean, that's just it. I just wanted to say that. And of course, huge thanks to you for listening as long as you have, with keeping with us with such alacrity, contributing to those polls, and to all of you online. Can't see you, but thank you so much. I know there were, I don't know, between 120 and 150 yesterday, perhaps more. I don't know how many online today, but thank you. You really are a very valuable part of this community. Just to say to you, I do have the privilege, so if you absolutely hate my moderation and you're going to be here for the Digital Twin Ocean, you're just going to have a hellish bloody time. That's all I can say to you, because I have the privilege, and it makes sense, to take us into, so put your hands up in the room, those of you who are staying for that, Thursday and Friday. Okay. There is actually, by the way, only one panel for that, and that's a great one, because 6 directorates general are going to be on the stage. That's very unusual. But the rest is, just to say, it ain't me doing a lot of panels. It's actually introducing a lot of other specialists who will be on this stage. It's about onboarding. It's about some technical stuff. So it's going to be a different format, so don't worry about that, all right? And on that note, get some air. There's lunch waiting for you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me. I learned a lot. Thank you to all of you there at home. Fly, be free. Yes. Oh, there were flowers as well. Damn it. There were flowers for, which I totally forgot. For Angeliki and Cara. I'm so sorry. I forgot the bloody flowers. There's a quote from the event. I forgot the bloody flowers. And on that note, you are released with all your brilliance. Thank you so very much. Fly, be free. Have some food. Bye-bye to everyone online. Flowers.
Thanks to you. Very much.
That's all right. You say, you go tomorrow. Are you here for the Digital Twin Ocean?